Chapter 2110. After Chen Zhao let Morocco Bic go, Morgri walked in. Chen, we're done. Yes, we're done. Chen Zhao nodded. Should we send someone to follow him? No. Since we found him this time, he can't run anymore. Chen Zhao was rather confident about this. You're not looking for him, just for the tens of thousands of dollars, right? Morgri had never interacted with Chen Zhao. However, he still paid attention to Chen Zhao occasionally. He had a rough idea of Chen Zhao's wealth. A few tens of thousands of dollars was really nothing to him. So if there was no need, Chen Zhao wouldn't chase after someone who owed him tens of thousands of dollars. Chen, Victoria seems a bit strange recently. Morgri's expression was serious. To him, Chen Zhao and Victoria were his only friends. Chen Zhao had helped him in his most difficult time. Victoria, on the other hand, was with him when he needed company the most. To Morgri, it wasn't an exaggeration to say that Victoria was his family. Strange? What happened to Victoria? Some time ago, a foreign gang came to fight with me for territory. I don't know how they found out about my feelings for Victoria, but they wanted to kill Victoria to attack me. In the end, all the gunmen sent by the gang were killed by Victoria. Chen Zhao thought for a moment. Victoria's body is huge. She's about the same size as Princess. Princess has killed people before too. Victoria killing a few people isn't something you should be so surprised about. You haven't seen the scene. She tore down my house. Are you worried about your house? What do you think? Okay, take me to see Victoria, Chen Zhao said. Morgri brought Chen Zhao to his house. As a gang leader, Morgri's house was very remote. Almost no one knew where he lived. Of course, it wasn't a secret to Chen Zhao. When Chen Zhao and Morgri got out of the car, Victoria charged over happily. Morgri turned and left in fear. He'd experienced Victoria's super passionate charge before. Now that the walls around his house had been torn down, most of the credit had to go to Victoria. Only Chen Zhao opened his arms and Victoria rushed into his embrace. To cushion the impact, Chen Zhao had to take a few steps back. To prevent Victoria from knocking herself unconscious, Victoria rubbed her head against his body. Then he ran up to Morgri. She grunted and nudged Morgri with her head. It was as if it was complaining about Morgri for avoiding its warm welcome just now. Victoria, Morgri explained. Just because Chen can handle your passion doesn't mean I can too. I'm a normal person. Victoria turned back to Chen Zhao. Morgri was left standing there with a bitter smile. Chen's here, Morgri said helplessly. I'm sad that you treat me like this. Victoria looks very healthy. She doesn't seem to have any problems at all. Victoria over there. Morgri pointed at a tree in front. Although Victoria was dissatisfied with Morgri, she still obeyed his orders and opened her mouth in that direction. Roar! This was definitely not the sound of a wild boar. Amidst the roar, the tree Morgri was pointing at collapsed. The entire tree trunk was cut in half. Sound waves? No, it wasn't a sound wave. It felt more like a shock wave. Not bad, Victoria. Good job. Chen Zhao patted Victoria. Chen, aren't you surprised at all? Chen Zhao looked at Morgri. Morgri, you seem to have forgotten that I practically created Victoria. Do you think I should be surprised? I should have thought of it. Morgri smiled bitterly. Actually, he had already realized something, but he wasn't sure. Tell me what's special about Victoria, Chen Zhao said. I'm not sure about the details, but I suspect that Victoria can absorb the shock and then release it. Am I thinking too much? No. Actually, I know someone who can do the same thing. Chen Zhao shrugged. You're talking about people with superpowers, right? He's like a superhero from the X-Men. You can think of it that way. Chen Zhao didn't plan on explaining too much to Morgri. Morgri wasn't part of the circle anyway. As for how he imagined it, Chen Zhao didn't care. Victoria was very smart. She wasn't even smarter than Princess. Victoria could complete many of Chen Zhao and Morgri's orders perfectly. Chen Zhao also did some small experiments on Victoria. He had a rough understanding of Victoria's abilities. Victoria indeed relied on absorbing the shock and then releasing it. But it wasn't an external attack. Instead, it created the shock itself. More accurately, it was kinetic energy. For example, when it crashed into Chen Zhao, even if Chen Zhao didn't retreat, it could still absorb it. If Chen Zhao attacked it, the attack wouldn't be absorbed. The shock would be as much as it should be. Of course, with Victoria's defense. Unless it was a large caliber gun. Normal guns really couldn't do anything to Victoria. Plus, even a small car might not be able to hold Victoria's weight of more than 1,000 kilograms. So the gunmen who came to kill Victoria in order to attack Marguerite were really suicidal. Okay, it's fine. Victoria is very healthy, both physically and mentally. Okay. As soon as Chen Zhao left Marguerite's house, he received a call from old Zhang. Chen Zhao, you hit my disciple? Which time are you talking about? Which time? Of course it's Yang Gua. He can't get out of bed for half a month. Only half a month? Which hospital is he in? I'll treat him for another month. That's enough. Why did you hit Yang Gua? Didn't he tell you? No. What happened to you guys? Then you can question him after you figure it out. If you keep talking, I'll kill him right now. Then I'll hang up first. I'll deal with you later. Zhang Tianyi scolded himself for being muddle-headed. He didn't even understand the situation before coming to question Chen Zhao. Given Chen Zhao's cautious nature, he wouldn't touch his grand disciple unless there was a reason. Chen Zhao pursed his lips. He seemed to have beaten Yang Gua too lightly last time. Should he give him 2 more hits, so that he'll be bedridden for at least half a year? Otherwise, he felt that the cost of breaking his promise was too low. Anyway, Chen Zhao was in the right this time. Old Zhang couldn't find any reason to refute him. But Yang Gua seemed to be in the psionic team's headquarters right now. If Chen Zhao rashly went in, he wouldn't have any reputation. Chapter 2111. On the way home, Chen Zhao received another call. Hey West, what's up? President, the psionic team is recruiting again. As expected of the Anti-Terrorism Security Department. They have a lot of funds. Paying a spiritualist a higher salary than an ordinary person wasn't enough to raise them. Spiritualists needed training, nutrition, and mana replenishment. The money they needed was much more than a professional athlete's daily expenses. There were also some special types of spiritualists, such as alchemists and mechanical spiritualists. Their expenses were even higher. The expenses of a small or medium-sized company could barely support an alchemist's daily expenses. Therefore, the supernatural organization only had one alchemist, Ruan Faxben. They only had one healing spiritualist. If possible, he also wanted to find a few more alchemists and healing-type spiritualists. But that would be too much of a burden for the supernatural organization. The size of the organization determined the composition of its members. President, are we just going to let them continue being so arrogant? Sooner or later, they'll naively think that they're strong enough to challenge us and start a war with us. The people of the supernatural organization were naturally stronger than regular spiritualists. But the structure of the organization was a bit special. Most of them had their own families. He wasn't the kind of person who lived alone and didn't need to worry about his family. So if a real war broke out, the supernatural organization would lose. Because this could affect their original family. So both Chen Zhao and Wes were actually avoiding a real war. Chen Zhao had shown all the power in front of the psionic team. Wasn't he showing off his power to them? It made them think more carefully when making a choice. Chen Zhao thought for a moment and said, they're probably preparing to attack the Bermuda Demon Lair. In this operation, they'll probably use up all the people they recruited. They recruited quite a lot of people this time. What's your plan? Are you going to cause trouble for them? That's too crude, West said. It's not suitable. What's your plan? We'll observe and see if there are any good seeds that we can rope into the supernatural organization. Do you think we don't have enough people? It's not that we don't have enough people. But for the next Scarlet mission, we plan to challenge some difficult missions. So I'm afraid we won't be able to do it with our current manpower. Then can I help a little? Don't. Please don't, guild leader. If you interfere again, I'll really get angry. Okay, I won't interfere this time, I swear. West knew very well that Chen Zhao was one of the top few in the spiritual world. Perhaps even this one of them could be omitted. If Chen Zhao interfered, most operations in the world would no longer be operations. It was a one-sided slaughter. Alright, when are you going to observe? Remember to inform me if you come across any good seedlings. I have a list with me. Some of them are in West said. We can go and observe them now. Alright, where are you now? I think it's not far from Mirror Lake. Guild leader, are you home right now? I'm heading home. I'm almost at Mountain Town. Alright then, I'll wait for you in town. A while later, Chen Zhao met up with West. Where are we now? Is it in town? No, in the neighboring town, West said. The person they were going to find was currently living in Anderstown. They were less than 15 kilometers away from Mountain Town. Chen Zhao looked at the information West had given him. Target, Lindsay Beyonce, 25 years old female unemployed with a bad personality. She'd been sent to the juvenile detention center for stealing in school. She'd arrived in L.A. less than 5 days ago. She was currently living at her uncle's house in Anderstown. What magic does this woman use? Chen Zhao asked. Not sure yet, but there are records of her using magic twice. One was to rob a bank, and the other was to protect her family. Chen Zhao and West arrived at Anderstown. Anderstown was much more desolate than Mountain Town. The two towns were about the same size, but Anderstown wasn't as lively as Mountain Town. After all, Mountain Town had Mountain Beer's production line. It created thousands of direct jobs in Mountain Town. There were also countless indirect business chains. But Anderstown didn't have a company like Mountain Beer. So most people here worked outside. The conditions were much worse. Chen Zhao and West arrived at Anderstown, which was rather eye-catching. Especially Chen Zhao's car. It was too eye-catching. Chen Zhao parked the car by the road and walked into a fast food restaurant. When the boss at the cashier saw Chen Zhao and West, he was stunned. But soon, the boss sprinted out of the cashier and came before Chen Zhao and West. Mr. Chen, hello. Welcome. Chen Zhao looked at the boss in surprise. Hi, do we know each other? Hello, my daughter works at Dashin Brewery, so I've had the honor of meeting you. How may I be of service? Nothing, Chen Zhao said. My friend and I want to eat something. Can you bring some food over? Mountain Beer and the Mountain Town government had an agreement to give priority to mountain residents. However, this priority was under the same conditions. It didn't have to be mountain residents. So the residents of the surrounding towns still had the chance to work in Mountain Town. Okay. One moment, please. The boss of the fast food restaurant ran to the backstage quickly. Soon, a woman in a midriff-bearing top and shorts walked out with a plate. Here's what you ordered. Enjoy. The woman casually tossed the plate on the table and turned to leave. Beyonce, be careful. That's Mr. Chen. He's very rich. Both Chen Zhao and West could hear the argument between the boss and the woman backstage. So what? What does it have to do with me? No matter how rich he is, it has nothing to do with you. Your sister Nicole works at his brewery. Do you want to make her lose her job? If he dares to make Nicole lose her job, I'll kill him. You'd better behave yourself. You can't offend that person. It's said that there were 2 gangs in Mountain Town that disappeared overnight after offending that person, Wang Yao said. I'm not afraid. Chapter 21:12. President, it seems like you've done scary things at home too. Please, I did send them all to jail. At least most of them did. You don't think I killed them all, do you? Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. I'm against violence. The argument between the fast food restaurant owner and Lindsay Beyonce was rather loud. A while later, Lindsay Beyonce walked out of the backstage angrily. When she reached Chen Zhao and West's table, she stopped and kicked the corner of the table heavily. Then she left angrily. Immediately, the fast food restaurant owner ran out. I'm sorry, Mr. Chen. My niece has been in a bad mood recently. I'm sorry she affected your meal. It's fine. Chen Zhao and West both expressed their understanding. They didn't plan to chase after Lindsay Beyonce immediately. Chen Zhao still finished the food in front of them unhurriedly. After eating, Chen Zhao put $2 bills on the table and left. West, you can track that woman's scent, right? I didn't leave a mark on him. President, you remember her scent, right? I don't remember. Even if I do, I won't use scent to track a woman. It's very dangerous to use your president as a hunting dog. Chen Zhao stared at West coldly. Fine, change your tracking method. I know you must have other methods. In fact, Lindsay Beyonce hadn't left Chen Zhao's little world. She was always under Chen Zhao's observation. At the moment, Lindsay Beyonce was in a small alley. Ever since she came out, She had been destroying things in the alley. It was obvious that it wasn't her first time here. It had become a place for her to vent her anger. She was punching the wall crazily. An enhancer? It seemed different from what Chen Zhao knew about strengthening. She was indeed strengthening her body, but she only attached magic to the surface of her body. It was completely different from regular strengthening. Take Chen Zhao as an example. Other than using immortal power, he would also let it change his body in order to achieve a qualitative change and finally strengthen himself. The other enhancers might be slightly different, but they were generally of the same type. But Lindsay Beyonce treated her magic like a bulletproof vest. Chen Zhao could do it too, because the quality of his immortal power was completely different from normal magic power. But this woman's magic power was not very strong, and could only be regarded as medium level. But she could arm herself with pure magic. Chen Zhao and West came to the alley, and saw that the walls were covered in fists. It could be seen that every time she quarreled with her uncle, she would come here to vent her anger. Also, the frequency of her venting seemed to be a little high. Lin Beyonce saw Chen Zhao and West at the end of the alley. He immediately revealed a ferocious expression. "What are you looking at? Do you think I won't beat you up?" Lin Beyonce had always been rebellious. She hated people like West and Chen Zhao. They looked decent but were actually filthy people. "Miss Linsand, we're here to look for you." "Looking for me? What are you doing?" Lin Beyonce squinted at Chen Zhao and West, sizing them up. "Then what do you think we'll do with you?" Thinking for a moment, she looked at Chen Zhao and West with even more disgust. "You know what I did in the past. Who do you want me to beat up? Or do you want me to harass someone?" "Fuck off, I won't be your fighter," Lin Beyonce said in disgust. However, Chen Zhao and West didn't plan to leave. She stood at the entrance of the alley, looking at Lindsay Beyonce with a smile. Lin Beyonce seemed to have sensed the malice from Chen Zhao and West. "Didn't you hear what I said? Do you really think I won't dare to hit you?" Lin Beyonce didn't do anything, she just scolded. She remembered that her uncle had told her that Chen Zhao was a rich man. She did not want to cause trouble for her uncle. Although she argued with her uncle almost every day, her uncle was really nice to her. If possible, she really did not want to drag her uncle down because of her. "Your magic looks interesting," West said, looking at Lin Beyonce. He could also see Lin Beyonce's special magic. "You're a spiritualist too?" Lin Beyonce looked at Chen Zhao. "You too, right? Or did you hire this old man specifically to help you solve all kinds of supernatural problems?" "That's right. He's my fighter. How about it? Are you interested in being my fighter? I can pay you a lot." "Trash, get lost." "Huh? Little girl, it's not nice to treat my boss like this." West stepped forward. "You need to apologize. Old man, be careful or I'll crush your balls." Crack. Lin Beyonce clenched her fists. "If you can do it, you can give it a try." West opened his arms generously. "So you're a masochist. If you don't leave, I won't go easy on you." "I'm not joking. I'm not joking. If you can do it, then come over and crush my whitey." Lin Beyonce suddenly charged at West. But the next moment, Lin Beyonce felt her body stiffen. No, more accurately, she was immobilized. There was nothing wrong with her body. It was her senses that had gone wrong. She seemed to have become sluggish. Lin Beyonce quickly thought of a way to escape. Instantly, Lin Beyonce shrunk back. Both Chen Zhao and West were shocked. Lin Beyonce's move was like a cicada escaping its shell. West's field of slowness could slow down all living things within a certain range. However, West's field of slowness was used on Lin Beyonce's shield. Lin Beyonce removed the complete shield and used the chance to escape from the field of slowness. It had to be said that this move almost blinded Chen Zhao and West. It was not because she was powerful, but because of Lin Beyonce's outstanding battle experience. Lin Beyonce also took the chance to close in on West. "Old man, you're finished." Lin Beyonce's fist was already close to West's face, but West maintained his smile. "You overestimate yourself." Chapter 21:13. Lin Beyonce was also a violent person. West's words had already ignited her fighting spirit. Lin Beyonce sneered. "Old man, don't let me break your bones." West crooked his finger. "Come." Lin Beyonce charged at West. "Freeze." Just as West froze Beyonce in place, Beyoncé cast another golden cicada escape. This cicada shedding could break free from West's control in an instant. In a sense, Lindsay's ability was a great counter to West's. But that was when they were at the same level or close to each other. In terms of magic power, there was still a gap between West and Lindsay Beyoncé. Beyoncé used the same trick, and appeared in front of West in the blink of an eye. West wasn't good at fighting alone. In the past, he had always been a strategist in the supernatural organization's operations. But that didn't mean he couldn't fight. West looked at Lindsay Beyoncé, who was approaching. He raised his right palm and snapped his fingers. Pa! Instantly Lindsay lost her balance. Her body seemed to lose its momentum in the air, and she fell heavily to the ground. Beyoncé wanted to stand up immediately, but when West pressed his finger down, Beyoncé immediately felt an invisible weight pressing on her back. The invisible thing that was pressing down on Lindsay Beyoncé was actually air. West's slow field could affect more than just living things. Even air could be affected. Within a certain range, the air would lose its mobility. Beyoncé tried to use the same trick to escape. But this time, she was completely surrounded by air. The thick air completely sealed off her escape route. "Old man, if I break free, I will crush your balls," Beyoncé said in a vicious tone. West squeezed his legs. "Then I can't let you go." Beyoncé was even more furious. But the difference in strength was obvious. She couldn't break free even if she wanted to. This was not a problem that could be solved with skill. Fine, I give up." Beyoncé rolled her eyes and shouted. In an instant, West released Beyoncé's restraints. "Boss, let's go." West and Chen Zhao, who were watching from the side, turned and left. Just then, Beyoncé dashed behind West. "Get down." West didn't even look back as he pressed Beyoncé to the ground. The two of them left without looking back. "President, what do you think of her? Did she come into contact with other spiritualists in the past? She seems to have a lot of battle experience, and doesn't look like a spiritualist without any power. Have you forgotten? She spent 2 years in the juvenile detention center. According to my investigation, she also committed all sorts of crimes in the juvenile detention center. Did she train her fighting skills in the juvenile detention center? If that's the case, then I can only say that she's a genius. Logically speaking, without rich combat experience, it would be very difficult to hone such outstanding combat skills. But there were indeed geniuses in this world. If Beyoncé was really a genius, then everything would make sense. In front of a genius, anything that was unreasonable could become reasonable. What about her abilities? West asked. Not bad, but that's all. If we really want to recruit her into the supernatural organization, it's best to train her character. The organization follows individual will, but it doesn't do whatever it wants. Also, Mayev wants to become an official member. I agree with Mayev becoming an official member, Chen Zhao said. After all, we know her very well. What about her husband, Jigs? Jigs doesn't object. Jigs was living with Mayev in the headquarters now. Apparently, Jigs found a professional manager for his company and did nothing else. He just relaxed with the people in the organization every day, or accompanied Mayev. After awakening, Mayev also became an outer member with Chen Zhao's approval. Who's next? Toddy Belster. She's very famous in Washington. She's a regular on TV. She's good at exorcism, prophecy, and curses. That's really traditional. These spells belong to the traditional magic system. Of course, such traditional spiritualists made up a large proportion of the entire Western spirit world. Chen Zhao and West hurried to the famous spiritualist's residence. As soon as they got downstairs, they saw a man walk out of the apartment. President, that's him. With West's reminder, Chen Zhao immediately turned around. He caught up to Toddy and grabbed her hand. Hi, Mr. Toddy. Hi, are you my fans? I'm on a tight schedule. Give me your phones. What? Aren't you taking pictures? Toddy asked matter-of-factly. Mr. Toddy, I think you're mistaken, West said. We're not your fans and we're not here to take pictures. Fine. If you're here for trouble, I'm afraid you found the wrong person. I'm a spiritualist. I'll make sure you live in fear for the rest of your lives. Chen Zhao and West's faces darkened. Toddy Belster was a very egotistical and arrogant person. They couldn't even finish a sentence. Toddy Belster kept talking to herself. Mr. Toddy, we're in the same profession as you. We're spiritualists too. Same profession? So you're here for trouble? Or is he here to compete with me? I'm not interested. Go find someone else. My magic is used to deal with evil creatures, not humans. I don't want to hurt you. We're not competing with you, West said. We just want to see how strong you are. I still refuse. You don't know what kind of person you're facing. The person who asked me to use magic on him last time is now a puddle of paste. You definitely don't want that to happen. We're spiritualists too, so you don't have to worry about hurting us. No, that's what the person said last time. But his arrogance killed him in the end. I blamed myself and swore to never use magic on humans again. Chapter 21:14. No matter what Chen Zhao and West said, Toddy wasn't willing to attack. This wasn't the alley from before either. It was a commercial building with a few security guards standing in front. It wasn't wise to attack here. Forget it, West. Let's go. We'll meet again in the future anyway. Chen Zhao patted West's shoulder. The man hid his aura well. Even Chen Zhao could only sense a faint magic aura from him. Chen Zhao also noticed that the man had a ring on his hand. It looked different, but Chen Zhao could still recognize it. It was the same magic ring that Ruan Faxi had made for him to suppress his aura. This man was definitely not weak. Perhaps even West wouldn't be able to defeat him easily. Toddy glanced at the two people who'd turned and left. He secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He'd really been afraid that the two would attack him. If they really did, he'd probably be on the news the next day. Famous spiritualists fighting on the streets. Toddy Belster wondered if she should get a bodyguard. He didn't want anyone to get close to him in the future. But business seemed to have decreased a lot recently. Even the high-paying jobs had decreased a lot. It seemed like he'd have to spend money on TV again. He wondered if the business in L.A. would be better than in Washington. However, the prices in Los Angeles were too expensive. He only needed to give at most $50,000 to host a show in Washington. Here, it would cost at least $150,000. Just then, a convertible stopped beside Toddy Belster. There was a sexy brown-haired woman and an Asian man in the car. The woman was Wistana. She pulled down her sunglasses. Mr. Toddy, can we talk? Do we know each other, miss? Mississippi. Toddy Belster looked at the two people in the convertible. He was sure that he didn't know them. Both of them were very iconic. If he'd seen them before, he wouldn't forget them. Were they sent by a former client? Could it be that there was a problem with one of the businesses, and the customer was looking for trouble? Mr. Toddy, it was me who sent you the invitation. Wistana smiled at Toddy Belster. Oh, it's you. I always thought that the invitation was a hoax. Toddy Belster said with a smile. The invitation said I'll get a job with an annual salary of $1 million. Is that true? Mr. Torty, as long as you can meet our requirements, $1 million is only the basic salary. I still don't believe you. What do you want me to do? Even though you don't believe it, you still came, which means you're interested. As for what to do, of course it's what you're best at, Vistana said. What she didn't know was why Toddy Belster chose to come to Los Angeles. It had nothing to do with the invitation Vistana sent him. It was because Toddy Belster had been caught cheating in Washington. The big client who had worked with him several times was now looking for him everywhere in Washington. He wanted him to return the money he had swindled in the past. Now he needed to move to another place to continue his career. Even without the invitation, Toddy Belster planned to come to Los Angeles. Then you'd better show me your sincerity first. Toddy Belster still didn't trust the two men in front of her. An annual salary of $1 million USD? What did that mean? He wouldn't be able to get that much money, even if he swindled people for years. What kind of job could pay $1 million a year? Dealing drugs? Or smuggling firearms? If that was the case, Toddy Belster wouldn't accept it. It was too risky. But for Vistana and Yonghua, it was a good opportunity. They weren't afraid of a big appetite, but they were afraid of a lack of appetite. If he liked money, they'd satisfy him. Money was the easiest price to give and pay. They wished the other party only wanted money. Vistana got out of the car and came to Toddy Belster. This is a check for $1 million. You can cash it at any time. But if you cash it at the bank, it means you've accepted our offer. Toddy Belster held the check between his fingers, and it instantly disappeared from his hand. Of course, I'll think about it. With that, Toddy Belster turned around and left. I'll give you an answer in 3 days, Toddy Belster said with his back to them. Vistana looked at Yang Guo in the car. How is he? How strong is he? I can't feel it, but I can't tell what system he used to make the check disappear. There's a faint magical aura on him. If I don't look carefully, I can't tell. It means that he's very good at hiding his strength, Yang Guo said. He's not weaker than me, maybe even stronger. So he's worth our offer? I'm sure that most of the people we recruit aren't as strong as him, Yang Guo said with certainty. I wouldn't be surprised even if he's the strongest. Is he really that strong? Yes. Other than Chen Zhao. I can't think of anyone else who's this strong at such a young age. You haven't even seen him fight, but you're sure he's strong. Based on what he did just now, I don't even know how to defend against it if he kills someone. Is it possible to kill Chen Zhao? Yang Guo shook his head. Chen Zhao's strength can be predicted. As for this Mr. Torty, we can't accurately determine his strength, so it's hard to judge. However, Chen Zhao's strength isn't just in his strength. He also has rich battle experience. At least in a head-on battle, I can't think of anyone who can fight him head-on. What about your grandmaster? That's different. If we include my master, it'll be meaningless. Fine. But this man should be worth recruiting, right? Indeed, it's worth it, and he loves money so much. If he can be recruited with money, we won't lose anything. However, 1 million USD is definitely not enough to satisfy him. So when we officially recruit him, we'd better prepare a bigger check. No problem. Vistana nodded. Let's go back and think about it. Other than Toddy, there are a few others who are also valuable. If they join the psionic team as we wish, they'll be of great help to us. Chapter 21:15. The first thing he did was to go to the bank to verify the check's authenticity. With the current technology, it was impossible to tell if the check was real or fake without the help of a bank. Even an expert like Torty Bilster couldn't tell them apart. In fact, even with the check in his hand, Toddy didn't believe it. After all, the check came too easily. It was like it was free. Who would believe that the other party would casually throw him a real check for $1 million? In his dreams? But the bank clerk told him that it was a real check. And he could cash it at any time. This check worth $1 million. It wasn't a joke. Toddy Belster was dumbfounded. He stood there for a long time, unable to react. He had an urge to cash the check and walk away. But when he thought about it carefully, he had no idea who the other party was. Would the other party so easily put a check for $1 million in his hand and leave without a care? That was impossible, right? Although he didn't know what the other party's goal was, they definitely wouldn't let him do whatever he wanted. Perhaps in the business hall of the bank, their people were watching him. So Toddy Belster became more careful and began to look around. After thinking about it for a long time, Toddy decided to leave for now. But no matter what the other party's goal was, he had to find out. He might even be able to earn more money from it. Of course, it was necessary to be on guard. But in this situation, how could he be on guard? Toddy thought about it for a while and decided to find a professional first. What Toddy Belster called a professional was actually a professional liar. He was also the person who brought him into the business, a senior. But this person eventually went too far and ended up in prison. Moreover, he had not been sent to prison, but had gone to hide in prison. It's here. I wonder if he's still in this prison. Toddy walked into the 7th prison, and after asking the prison guard, he got a clear answer. The person he was looking for was in prison, and had just been sent in. For a little money, Toddy Belster got a visitation. Toddy Belster was still a little dazed when she saw her teacher. How did Morocco Piccolo, who used to be as strong as a fitness trainer, become so bloated? Was the food in prison very good? He remembered that the first time he went to prison, he had disguised himself as a seasoned mercenary and lied to a gang leader, saying that he could contact a powerful mercenary to help him get rid of his opponent. Even Toddy Belster had to admit that Morocco Bic's courage was commendable. Morocco Piccolo had swindled hundreds of thousands of dollars that time. However, Before he could finish, he was seen through by the big boss of the gang. Then they started to hunt him down. In the end, he even hid in prison. If it wasn't for the mafia boss being killed by a vendetta, Morocco Piccolo would probably not have stopped his pursuit even if he was in prison. Morocco Bic looked dispiritedly at Toddy Belster, who was beaming with success. Belster, are you here to show off to me? No, Piccolo, why would you think that? I'm here to visit you. Is that so? Morocco Bic sneered. After he was arrested, Toddy Belster cut off all contact with him, afraid that he would drag him down. He spent more than 10 years in prison on and off, but Toddy Belster never came to visit him. Therefore, Morocco Bic didn't believe that Toddy Belster was really here to visit him. Tell me, what's the matter? Morocco Bic asked directly. Looking at Toddy Belster's happy expression, Morocco Bic felt even more annoyed. He silently cursed Morocco Bic in his heart. His current appearance was his future. Piccolo, I ran into something weird recently. Toddy Belster suddenly looked at Morocco Bic with a serious expression. What weird thing? Did you run into a ghost? Morocco Bic asked casually. Someone gave me a check for $1 million out of nowhere. Are you kidding me? Or are you here to show off? No. I'm serious. Let me finish. Toddy Belster told Morocco Bic what had happened to him. The more Morocco Bic listened, the more surprised he became. Toddy didn't look like he was joking. However, what he said was too unbelievable. It would not be an exaggeration to say that it was unprecedented. Would someone really give a liar $1 million out of nowhere? Why couldn't he run into such a good thing? Piccolo, I'm here to ask you what I'm going to do. Hearing Toddy Belster's words, Morocco Bic woke up immediately. He was really here to ask for his opinion. I need to get out of prison, Morocco Bic said. Toddy Belster thought for a moment. How much is your bail? $100,000, Morocco Bic said. Sure. After it's done, I'll help you get out. No, not after, Morocco Bic said. I want to get out now. Do you think I should believe a liar's promise? Morocco Bic felt that as long as he paid Chen Zhao back, he would be free. Then he would be even with Chen Zhao. Morocco Piccolo was worried about how to make money. Toddy Belster also came at the right time. I can't pay that much right now. No, you have money. I don't believe you can't pay that much. Morocco Bic said confidently. How can a liar not leave a way out? Toddy Belster's eyes flashed. $100,000 wasn't a small amount either. Even if he could pay it, he wouldn't be willing. Even if this person was his senior and teacher. However, he wasn't confident in his current situation. Morocco Bic was smarter than him. He knew how to solve problems and clear up the situation. If he could help him plan, Toddy Belster was more confident that he could escape unscathed. After thinking for a long time, Toddy finally said, Okay, I'll bail you out. Just then, the lights in the visiting room flashed. Then there was a commotion outside. Huh? What's going on outside? It's so noisy. 9 Heavens Divine King. Chapter 21:16. I'm not crazy. I saw it. I really saw it. White nightmare. White nightmare. A prisoner was holding on to a prison guard in the corridor like a madman. The other prison guards were pulling the prisoner. The visiting room here wasn't the kind with a window partition. Some prisoners had lighter crimes, so they could sit at a small table with their family or relatives to talk. This prisoner seemed to have just met his family. He suddenly seemed to have gone crazy. No one knew if he was agitated by something. Also sitting in the visiting room, Morocco Bic's expression was ugly. This wasn't the first time he'd seen such a crazy prisoner. Belster, help me with my parole right now. The sooner the better. Toddy Belster turned to look at Morocco Piccolo. I heard that you've been here many times since more than a decade ago. Do you still care about a day or two? No one can really get used to life in prison, Morocco Bic said. Belster thought for a moment and said, Bic, can you really think of a way for me? You don't believe me? Morocco Bic asked. We haven't worked together for more than 10 years. I'm not sure if you still have the ability you used to. In the past, Belster did trust Morocco Bic. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he worshipped him. Back then, Morocco Bic didn't look like a liar at all, because liars gave people the impression that they were shifty-eyed. Back then Morocco Bic was all brawn, and he looked especially honest. It was hard to believe that he was actually a highly intelligent person. Many people didn't believe that Morocco Bic was a liar. Plus, he had superb deception skills. Back then, he was almost successful in every endeavor. No matter who his target was, he never failed. Until he locked on to a big boss of the underworld. Back then, Morocco Bic was too confident, even to the point of arrogance. A liar could trick anyone, including the cops. But never turn your target to the gangs. That was the rule of their line of work. Because the gang could use any method to deal with them. Liars would always be at a disadvantage against this group. This was a matter of life and death. But at that time, Morocco Piccolo had actually used the scam he had used on ordinary people on the gangsters. In the end, he had no choice but to hide in jail. To avoid being hunted down by the gang. More than a decade had passed, and Toddy Belster wasn't sure how capable Morocco Piccolo was. Belster, do you think I've been wasting my time in prison for more than a decade? Fine. Toddy Belster didn't really believe in Morocco Bic. But he had to admit that with Morocco Piccolo's advice, it would indeed make it easier for him to get money. In the end, Toddy Belster decided to help Morocco Bic get parole. But when he arrived at the warden's office in the morning, he heard that Morocco Bic could not be granted parole. This was because Morocco Bic had committed a crime during his last parole. Therefore, he had already lost his chance of parole. Of course, it was not impossible to explain. For example, on the basis of the original parole fee, one could get parole approval by paying 10 times the original parole fee. But according to Morocco Piccolo's basic parole, if Morocco Bic wanted to get out, then Toddy Belster would have to pay $500,000. There was no way Toddy Belster would pay $500,000 to bail Morocco Bic out. Miss Caprice, can you do me a favor? If you'll do me this little favor, this check is yours. Toddy Belster handed Caprice a check for $20,000. Caprice raised her head silently and looked at Toddy Belster. Caprice's gaze made Toddy Belster very uncomfortable. I'm sorry. I offended you. Toddy Belster immediately reached out to take back the check. But Caprice grabbed Belster's arm. Who gave you the guts to use a fake check in front of me? Toddy Belster's face turned even uglier. He had forgotten that he was in prison. As a warden, if he didn't have any ability, how could he have intimidated so many vicious criminals? He actually dared to use a fake check in front of a warden. He actually made the same mistake as Morocco Bic. Is it fun to tease an old woman? Caprice said coldly. Miss Caprice, you misunderstand. I took the wrong check. Actually, I'm a lawyer. This check is the evidence provided by my client. I haven't presented it to the judge yet, and it's in my pocket. Is that so? So you're a respectable lawyer? Caprice's face lit up with a smile. Toddy Belster secretly sighed in relief. It seemed like the lawyer title was really useful. There are many prisoners in my prison who are wronged. They also need a kind lawyer to help them. Of course, I'd be happy to, Miss Caprice. I'll help these wronged people in court another day, but not today. I have something to do today. I'm afraid not. You can't leave. Caprice shook her head. Miss Caprice, what do you mean? Are you illegally detaining me? That's right, illegally detaining you. Caprice said indifferently. Didn't you say that Morocco Bic is your good brother? I'm informing you now that you can have a pleasant conversation with him. I'll arrange for you two to be in the same cell. You can't do that. It's illegal. I'm a lawyer. I'm going to sue you. Caprice suddenly reached out and grabbed Toddy Belster's hair, pulling her onto the desk. Lawyer? Sue me. Mr. Toddy Belster. Do you know how many years you'll be sentenced for using a large fake check, bribery, and attempted to break out of prison by force? Oh, and you used violence here and hurt many guards. Toddy Belster's mouth was open, his face full of shock. He didn't expect Caprice to weave so many charges against him. This woman was too evil. So, do you want to stay in prison for a week or more than 15 years? Miss Caprice, I didn't offend you, did I? You're using a fake check to frame me. Why can't I? I can give you a real check. How about letting me go? Then you'll have to pay more. Chapter 21:17. Caprice didn't like people messing with her. Of course, no one liked it. And Toddy Belster had fooled her with a fake check. That was why Caprice wanted to teach Toddy Belster a lesson that she would never forget. In this prison, Caprice was the queen. No one could defy her, no one dared to. Even the prison guards here were her loyal pawns. And so Toddy Belster was dragged into the prison. No one cared about his cries and screams. Even if he told them it was illegal. Even if he told them it was illegal. He didn't commit a crime. But no one listened to him. No one would defend him. Then Toddy Belster was thrown into the same cell as Morocco Bick. Belster, what's wrong with you? Morocco Bick looked at Toddy in surprise. How did you get in here? That damned woman. She's illegally detaining us. Toddy Belster roared. What the hell is going on? Toddy Belster evasively spilled the truth. Morocco Bick almost went berserk. You idiot. Idiot. Morocco Bick didn't know what words he should use to describe Toddy Belster. What kind of person was Caprice? That woman was known as the devil woman in prison. She was despicable, cunning, greedy, cruel, and cold. Caprice was the ruler of this prison. And Toddy Belster dared to use such a crude method to fool Caprice. Wasn't this courting death? Great, he didn't get him out. Instead, he got in. Morocco Bick wanted to kill Toddy Belster. Caprice would never forgive anyone who dared to make a fool out of her. And he might be dragged into it. I'm going to sue her. That woman. Belster roared angrily. He still hadn't realized the mistake he had made. Soon enough, both of them experienced Caprice's revenge. They weren't let out at dinner time. And the electricity in their cell was cut off. The two of them were in the dark. Morocco Bick was calm. After all, he had been in prison for more than 10 years. What had he not seen before? Although Toddy Belster was doing very well outside, he was not a good player. But he had never been to prison. So he started to panic. He thought of all the bad things that could happen. He had already immersed himself in a state of extreme panic. Morocco Bick was calmer. He stayed in his bed. Caprice wouldn't kill them. At the very least, he wouldn't kill them so blatantly. But that didn't mean they were safe. Caprice was the ruler of this prison. However, there were still some things and dangers here that she could not touch. For example, the white nightmare that was secretly spread among the prisoners here. Morocco Piccolo was not afraid of living in prison, even if it was dark and dark. Prison also had its own rules of survival. Morocco Bick's life in prison was even safer than the outside world. However, the white nightmare was a danger outside of the rules. It was something that was not bound by any rules. In fact, in this prison, everyone was talking about the white nightmare. But in reality, not everyone believed it. Most people were still spreading false rumors. Many people claimed that they had seen the white nightmare. But they were actually just bragging. So their descriptions of the white nightmare were also very strange. But Morocco Bick knew very well that the white nightmare really existed. Moreover, he had personally experienced the attack of the white nightmares and survived. So he was the one who had the most say here. But he couldn't say it. Even if he did, people would only think that he was bragging. Toddy Belster leaned against the window. Only the window had a bit of light. The moon was especially bright tonight. Perhaps it was the rare silence that made the two open their hearts. The two of them chatted on and off. Belster, what identity have you been using outside all these years? For the past 2 years, I've been using the identity of someone from the spiritual world, a famous spiritualist, Toddy said. Toddy Belster said, You don't know how easy it is. I spent tens of thousands of dollars on a TV talk show to bribe the producer to get me on the show. Then a lot of idiots came to give me money, and there was almost no risk. Belster, do you really think there's no risk? What risk can there be? Most of those who are willing to give me money are crazy. The so-called haunting is actually just scaring themselves. Those supernatural things really exist in this world, Morocco Bick said. Morocco Piccolo said, If one day you meet a real one, it will be your death. Bick, stop fooling around. You never believed in this in the past. Toddy Belster only thought that Morocco Bick was scaring him. Morocco Bick was a pure atheist. He even often joked about going to DI. Would such a person believe in ghosts in this world? Morocco Bick glanced at Toddy. In the past, he indeed didn't believe in ghosts and gods. But after that incident, he believed it. And he believed it deeply because he knew that what he saw and experienced was real. Toddy Belster looked at Morocco Bick. You can't be serious, right? Forget it. Morocco Bick shook his head. He knew that he couldn't convince Toddy. By the way, are there any cats here? Toddy Belster asked. No. But I saw a white cat running down the aisle. Ha! That cat stood up. Morocco Bick was furious. What did you say? You saw a white cat just now. Morocco Bick recalled the form of the white nightmare. It was a white cat, its body glowing with a faint white light. Even in the darkness, it was very conspicuous. Psst! Toddy Belster saw the white cat run to the iron gate and teased it. But looking closely, it wasn't a white cat. From afar, it did look like a white cat, but in fact, it was an unknown creature. Bick, come look. What is this little guy? It looks so strange. Toddy Belster was still shouting recklessly, but when he turned his head, he saw Morocco Bick curled up in the corner. Bick, what's wrong? Chapter 21:18. The dim moonlight shone on Morocco Bick's face. Toddy Belster looked at him in shock. Terror was written all over Morocco Bick's face. Bick, what's wrong? White nightmare. What white nightmare? It was Toddy Belster's first time hearing the term. He didn't understand what the name white nightmare meant to the prisoners in the prison. It was a nightmarish existence. Morocco Bick pointed at the door. Toddy Belster looked back again. Suddenly, he saw the white cat that should be outside the door come in somehow. Toddy Belster reached out to touch the cat. But in the next moment, the white cat had already bitten his palm. Damn! Toddy Belster immediately retracted his hand. Bastard! Toddy Belster wanted to take revenge on the white cat. But the cat was stuck to the wall. He could only watch and sigh. Toddy Belster looked at his bitten palm. Suddenly, he realized that there was a mark on his palm. The bite mark was gone. That's weird. Why is there something on my palm? Morocco Bick stared at the white nightmare in fear. At this moment, white nightmare turned to Morocco Bick. It seemed to have recognized Morocco Bick. This time, Chen Zhao wasn't there to protect him anymore. The white nightmare pounced at Morocco Bick. Morocco Bick's mind went blank. Instinctively, he covered his head with his arm. Then he felt pain in his arm. Morocco Bick waved his arm. But he didn't touch anything. He looked at his arm again. There was a mark now. It was the same as the one on Toddy Belster's palm. Where's that bastard? Where did she go? Toddy Belster looked around and found that there was no sign of the white nightmare. Crack! Just then the metal door opened. Morocco Bick and Toddy Belster were both stunned. The metal door made a creaking sound as it was pushed open. Piccolo, is this door broken? It was pitch black outside. There weren't even any street lights. Morocco Bick's expression grew more serious. All the signs were developing in the direction he was most worried about. Why isn't there a prison guard outside? Toddy Belster didn't realize the seriousness of the problem at all. She threw it aside and looked around on the walkway. Is this kind of prank a specialty of your prison? At this moment, the iron door of the cell next door also opened. Startled, Toddy Belster saw a prisoner looking around inside the door. Hey, what are you doing now? Toddy Belster asked. The prisoner glanced at Toddy Belster. You didn't do this? What can I do? Toddy Belster rolled her eyes. Piccolo, explain it to him. Morocco Piccolo walked to the door. But he was unwilling to take another step. Morocco, you're here too. What's going on? When the prisoner in the next room saw an acquaintance, he felt slightly relieved. Morocco Piccolo looked at his old acquaintance. Were you bitten by something just now? I think it was a white cat. I was lying on the bed and didn't pay attention. After it bit me, it disappeared. That's not a white cat. Then what is it? It's a white nightmare. Morocco Piccolo's expression grew more serious. Stop joking. The white nightmare is just a stupid joke in prison. It's not a joke. The white nightmare really exists, and it's not the first time I've seen it. Wait, what are you talking about? Toddy Belster was confused. She had no idea what the white nightmare they were talking about was. People have been dying in this prison for the past few months, Morocco Piccolo said. There's a rumor that there's a monster in this prison. It's that white nightmare, the thing that just bit you. You're joking, right? I know. The warden must have asked you to team up to tease me. If I'm right, you're teasing me. Toddy Belster's smile was forced. This was because he vaguely realized that many unexplainable things had happened ever since the white nightmare shapeshifter had appeared. A voice in Toddy Belster's head reminded him. Morocco Piccolo wasn't joking. He was serious. The other prisoner was also a little frightened. Thomas, where were you bitten? Morocco Piccolo asked. Here. How, where's the wound? When did I get this tattoo on my hand? The prisoner named Thomas raised his arm. He wanted to show his wound to Morocco Piccolo and Toddy Belster, but he realized it was gone. There was a mark on his hand that was identical to theirs. I have one too. It's from that thing's bite. Toddy Belster extended his palm. Morocco Piccolo also extended his arm. The mark on his arm was identical to theirs. Morocco, tell me seriously that this is fake, right? I don't think it's a joke. Morocco Piccolo shook his head. Don't ask me more questions. I can't answer you. Just then, the three saw a white figure in the corridor in front of them. White Nightmare. The White Nightmare was standing at the end of the corridor. The white figure was especially eye-catching in the darkness. The three of them gulped. Run! Morocco Piccolo shouted and turned to run. Toddy Belster and Thomas hurried after Morocco Bic. Did the White Nightmare catch up? I don't know. I didn't dare look back. Look back. Why didn't you look back? Right at this moment, a figure blocked their path again. What's going on? Why is the White Nightmare ahead of us? Morocco Piccolo wanted to run back, but when he looked back, he saw another White Nightmare standing behind them. Morocco Piccolo wanted to jump down. They were on the 3rd floor, and there was an indoor activity area below. But before he could jump, Morocco Piccolo saw another White Nightmare below. There was more than one White Nightmare, and there were more than one. The three found White Nightmares in every corner. What? What do we do? These monsters will eat us, right? Toddy Belster was terrified. She grabbed Morocco Piccolo's arm tightly. Chapter 21:19. These White Nightmare nightmares didn't attack the three of them. They covered every corner, their eyes gleaming. The three of them stuck close to each other. Morocco, look at the upper level. Morocco looked in the direction Thomas pointed, and found that in the upper prison, there was also an open door. A prisoner was also standing at the door of the cell. The prisoner on the upper level also saw Morocco Bic, Toddy Belster, and Thomas below. But soon, they found that they weren't the only ones who were attacked. They had found more than a dozen prisoners in the entire prison. Each prisoner had a mark left by the White Nightmare nightmares. More than a dozen prisoners gathered together one after another. They asked each other what was going on, but no one could give an answer. More than a dozen prisoners gathered together. These criminals, who used to be vicious and evil, were all terrified now. Just then, the area where the White Nightmare nightmares were concentrated in front of them suddenly opened up a path. A man walked out from the middle of the path that the White Nightmare nightmares had opened up. It was obvious from the way he was dressed. This man wasn't a prisoner here. Most people were even wondering if he was a living person. This man's body was covered in dents marks, just like the marks on Morocco Bic and the others. But they only had one mark on them. But this man might have hundreds or even more marks on him. Trash, all of you should be very curious about who I am. Toddy Belster shouted in his heart. He didn't want to know who this guy was. He just wanted to leave here and escape forever. He finally understood why Morocco Piccolo was in such a hurry to escape this place. Because he knew what was here. Let me introduce myself. My name is Jurawan Melson. Of course, as you guessed, I'm not a real living person. Mr. Jurawan, what do you want? If I can do it, I will definitely meet your needs. Toddy Belster was smart enough to think that Jurawan Melson was in control of the whole situation. So he took the initiative to please Jurawan Melson, hoping to leave a good impression on him. Maybe Jurawan Melson would let him go. Jurawan Melson glanced at Toddy Belster. Very smart human. At least you're smarter than most of them. I know you bastards want to talk trash or threaten me. Believe me, it won't do you any good, and your threats won't cause me any harm. So in order to avoid being targeted by me, you'd better shut up and listen to me. That way, you might be able to survive. Of course, please instruct me. I will listen carefully to your teachings. The other prisoners were very unhappy with Toddy Belster, but they were also very jealous. Jealous of Toddy Belster's eloquence. Even to them, these words were so mushy. But Toddy Belster could still say it without any difficulty. They couldn't do it anyway. Very well, I will pay special attention to you. There aren't many humans as smart as you. I hope you can survive. Toddy Belster cursed in her heart. She had already put down her dignity, but this guy still didn't intend to let her go. All right, let's get back to business. Right now, every word I say will determine your life and death. Wistana, did you see Toddy Belster today? Brits asked. Yes, Yang said Toddy Belster is a rare master, even stronger than him. Really? No wonder he dared to go to Prison 7. But I'm afraid he won't make it. Prison 7? What's that place? Is it a prison? Yes, Brits said. The full name is L.A. Prison 7. Is there a problem with that place? In L.A., there are 3 places spiritualists can't go. L.A. Prison 7 is one of them. Is that place very dangerous for spiritualists? 50 years ago, there was actually a short period in North America when the supernatural world flourished. But at that time, the government wanted to conduct human experiments on spiritualists. In the end, the spiritualists rebelled, and the 2 sides had a fierce conflict. Brits said, the spiritualists were naturally the losers. As a result, they suffered heavy losses. Many spiritualists died in battle, and over 1,000 of them were captured and imprisoned. The place where they were imprisoned was L.A. Prison 7? That's right. Back then, Los Angeles Prison Number 7 was actually called the Onpu Military Experimental Base. Then it was changed to a prison specifically for spiritualists. However, 3 years after the war, most of the spiritualists were burned to death in a fire, Brits said. It was also from then on that the hope of the rise of the North American supernatural world was completely shattered. The 7th prison was actually built in the ruins, but it also became a forbidden place for spiritualists. Since the 7th prison was built, there have been all kinds of supernatural incidents, but all the spiritualists who went there to solve the problems never came out. What exactly is there? I don't know. No one knows what's there, but the prisoners in there often die. In fact, the government has always known about this, but they can't do anything about it. So they have always pretended not to know. No matter how the prisoners in the 7th prison die, the government will suppress the news and deal with it coldly. What's that Toddy Belster doing there? Courting death? I don't know. There are always some spiritualists who try to prove their strength, but the results are often very tragic. Then will he die there? Most likely. Don't have too much hope for him, Brits said. Just then Yangguo walked in. At that moment Yangguo walked in. I don't think he'll die that easily. He's very powerful, and his methods are brilliant. Very few people can hide from my senses. Furthermore, he's wearing a ring that can suppress one's aura. Very few people would use that kind of ring, because most of the time, even their own strength would be suppressed. Therefore, it's very useless. However, he's wearing a ring, so I'm sure that his strength is definitely not below ours, or even stronger. Is that so? Hearing what you said, I'm looking forward to him coming out of there. I also hope that he can come out of there. If he comes out alive, the strength of our psionic team will increase greatly. Chapter 2120. There are 18 of you here. I believe everyone has heard of their names, White Nightmare. Jirawan Melson pointed to the White Nightmare nightmares and said, each of you can choose a White Nightmare nightmares. They will devour your fear and despair and become stronger. You will need to vote for death. Each person can vote for 2 people, and cannot vote for the same person. The 2 people with the highest votes, and the White Nightmare nightmares they chose will fight to the death. The loser will be devoured by the winner. Everyone's expression became very unnatural. Jirawan Melson had a cold smile on his face. That's right, it's like this. Fear, despair, and bewilderment. But you haven't chosen your White Nightmare yet, so you can't feed it. The winner has the right to skip the next round, Jirawan Melson said. The condition for the winner is that the duelist or the contracted White Nightmare dies in battle. It will be judged as a failure. Toddy Belster kept cursing in his heart. All the flattery he had just done was useless. This demon didn't leave him any room to maneuver. But cursing aside, he didn't miss a word of Jirawan Melson's words. He remembered them all. Suddenly, Morocco Bick nudged Toddy Belster. Belster, go choose a White Nightmare. What are you spacing out for? Toddy Belster looked up, and saw that the others had already gone to choose White Nightmare. He had been analyzing the situation in his heart, and was distracted. The white nightmares spread out in a circle, surrounding a dozen people. There were far more white nightmare than the prisoners present. They were of different sizes. Some white nightmare had spots of other colors on their bodies. Toddy Belster came to a large white nightmare. This white nightmare was almost as big as a large dog. Morocco Bick suddenly pulled Toddy Belster back. Belster, don't choose this one. Why? I don't know if you noticed all the white nightmare here. What's wrong? Toddy Belster still didn't understand what Morocco Bick meant. There were nearly 1,000 white nightmare here, densely packed together. His head was already swollen with just one look. What else could he pay attention to? Those big white nightmares aren't necessarily powerful, and those small ones aren't necessarily weak. Also, look at those pure white ones that aren't too big or too small. They will always be surrounded by different numbers of white nightmares. So I think it's not necessary to choose the biggest white nightmares, but the whitest ones. Toddy Belster looked at Morocco Piccolo in surprise. Pick the whitest one. Isn't this kind of selection a little too irresponsible? Morocco Bick was silent, and did not explain too much to Toddy Belster. He couldn't trust anyone here, not even his former friends. Similarly, Toddy Belster did not trust Morocco Bick either. But he saw that Morocco Piccolo had chosen a pure white nightmare. He believed that Morocco Bick would not joke around with his life. Therefore, he finally decided to choose a pure white nightmare shapeshifter. As for the other prisoners, some chose the big ones, while others chose the pure white ones. Okay, now that each of you has chosen a white nightmare shapeshifter, you can start voting now. You will not vote anonymously. Each of you will need to name the 2 people who voted, and say why you voted for them. Everyone was in an uproar. They hadn't expected Wuxia Merson to propose such a rule. He wanted them to tear each other apart in front of their faces. But they had no veto power. Everyone formed a circle, and looked at each other. No one said a word. No one wanted to open the door. If it's a tie, no matter how many people there are, they have to go up and fight, Wuxia Merson said. Wuxia Merson said, don't think that you can escape by saying nothing. Besides, only one person can survive in the duel arena. Everyone felt a chill. At this time, the exclusive white nightmare shapeshifters standing behind them began to devour their fear. The big white nightmare shapeshifters became even bigger, like balloons being inflated. And the pure white nightmare shapeshifters changed even more violently. Some had horns on their heads, while others had wings on their backs. Of course, spots appeared on some white nightmare shapeshifters. No one knew whether these changes were good or bad. The white nightmare shapeshifter behind Morocco Beak also changed. A pair of small horns grew on its head. Toddy Belster's white nightmare shapeshifter had a horn in the middle of its head. It was much longer than Morocco Beak's white nightmare shapeshifter. Morocco Beak's expression was solemn, perhaps because he had interacted with Chun Zhao before. Thus, Morocco Beak wasn't as terrified and desperate as the others. Moreover, he had always been hiding the bottle containing the indescribable thing in his pocket. Although he had once spurned and hated this bottle, he had never seen it before. But now, the bottle had become his final trump card. Let's start with you, Wuxia Merson said, pointing at Morocco Beak. Morocco Beak looked up at Wuxia Merson. Why me? Because you're the calmest, Wuxia Merson said. You don't seem too scared. Morocco Beak wanted to pretend his fear, but he couldn't. Because the white nightmare shapeshifter behind him could feel all his fear. It couldn't be faked at all. Morocco Piccolo took a deep breath, and glanced at everyone in the room. Everyone looked at Morocco Bick nervously. My first vote is for Nero. What? Why me? Why me? Did I offend you? One could tell from the white nightmare shapeshifter on Nero's back how scared he was. His white nightmare shapeshifter already looked like a tiger. It was colorful, and emitted an ominous aura. Because you're the biggest, Morocco Beak said. If any of us fight you, we have no chance of winning, so we need to get rid of the strongest. Morocco, I'll remember you. Just you wait, I won't die. And I'll kill you too. Morocco Beak ignored Nero's words, as if he hadn't heard them at all. My second vote is for Daniel. Daniel abruptly raised his head. His face was also filled with astonishment. Why? I'm not strong or dangerous. You're the most educated among us. So what? Chapter 21-21. A long-lost smile appeared on Morocco Bic's face. Having a high education also means having a high IQ. This game is very advantageous. So if you or he dies, the danger will be lower. Morocco Bic thought that having a high education was equivalent to having a high IQ was too far-fetched. But at least the prisoners present agreed with this idea. Most of them had low education, and they'd experienced the painful memories of being teased and crushed by people with high education. So they didn't have a good impression of people with high education. Daniel, on the other hand, was a prisoner with high education. He wasn't the kind of person whose life was destined from birth. He was born into a wealthy family and had a very high level of cultural literacy. But in the end, he was still sentenced to prison for manslaughter. Of course, Daniel wasn't a good person. Morocco Bic seemed to have changed into a different person. He became extremely calm. Then the second person started to vote. To put it bluntly, this was a werewolf killing game, with Morocco Bic taking the lead. Most of them voted for Daniel and Nello. They didn't disappoint and stepped onto the arena. This dueling platform was supposed to be used for illegal fights in prison, but now they were going to fight to the death here. Nero looked at Daniel with a sinister smile. Fear was written all over Daniel's face. However, Daniel's white nightmare became stronger because of his fear. He had also chosen a pure white nightmare succubus. Daniel's fear became the white nightmare's best food. Its body started to flicker with electricity. Everyone widened their eyes and stared at Daniel's white nightmare in shock. Daniel didn't realize it at first, but when he realized that everyone's gazes were strange, he couldn't help but turn his head. He saw that his white nightmare had turned into a beast emitting lightning. So beautiful. Jerwan Melson sighed. He looked at Daniel's white nightmare. It actually evolved into a thunder beast in the first round. This guy has potential. Thunder beast. Morocco Bic's eyes flickered. He didn't know if he was happy or sad. Just then Nero attacked first. More accurately, it was a sneak attack. He saw that the situation wasn't good, so he immediately attacked Daniel. But Daniel's thunder beast instantly counterattacked. Whoosh! The lightning bolt instantly pierced through Nero's chest, and it didn't stop there. It continued to pierce through Nero's white nightmare. Instant kill. Everyone sucked in a cold breath. No one had expected such an outcome. Nero and his white nightmare were instantly killed. Then, the thunder beast pounced on Nero's white nightmare's corpse and started to devour it. After eating the white nightmare shapeshifter's corpse, it turned its attention to Nero's corpse. Daniel's expression was stiff at first, but it was soon replaced by ecstasy. He didn't care about his white nightmare eating corpses at all. The stronger his white nightmare was, the higher his chances of survival. Morocco Piccolo's face was pale, because he found himself in a very dangerous situation. Because he was not afraid, at least not as afraid as the others. And he even took the initiative to send Daniel to the ring. Daniel absolutely hated himself right now. If he were to meet him in the ring, then he would definitely die. But just as Morocco Piccolo was thinking about this, his white nightmare was also absorbing his fear. Jerwan Melson looked at Morocco Piccolo and was surprised to find that his white nightmare was also evolving. Diamond Beast. After Morocco Piccolo's white nightmare absorbed his fear, it actually became like a diamond. Toddy Belster also looked at Morocco Piccolo in surprise. Piccolo, is there a trick? Teach me. There is no trick. Fear is the best method. Morocco Piccolo didn't look too happy. Strength and weakness were not absolute in this place. Fear would cause their advantages to disappear completely. Morocco Piccolo realized that he was weaker in this aspect. Are you guys getting excited? But that was just a warm-up. The game officially starts now. Jerwan Melson's face was filled with a cruel smile. Now let's start the second round. A door appeared beside Jerwan Melson. Jerwan Melson pushed it open. Everyone found that on the other side of the door was a completely different world. A world of chaos, blood, darkness, and decay. You can go in. No one took the first step and hesitated in front of the door that led to another world. If you refuse to enter, then your white nightmare will eat you, just like the previous person. Morocco Piccolo glanced at the diamond beast beside him. Let's go in, Morocco Piccolo whispered to Toddy Belster. The moment he stepped through the door, Morocco Piccolo felt his feet sink. Was this a swamp? The surroundings were filled with the smell of decay. The ground was soft and very difficult to walk on. The temperature was a bit low, making it very uncomfortable. What you're about to face is an unprecedented truth that overturns everything you know. This is a world you can't understand. You need to hunt a ferocious barbarian witch here. You can hunt it alone or with others. Of course, you can also rob others, as long as you have the ability. Morocco Piccolo frowned. Did they start killing each other so soon? It wasn't surprising that they would kill each other. From Jurawan Melson's words, it could be seen that he was a pervert. He kept saying that this was a game. So if this kind of survival game didn't kill each other, it would be very boring. However, Morocco Piccolo still believed that Jurawan Melson must have other purposes other than being a pervert. Perhaps it was related to the white nightmare around him. Thinking of this, Morocco Piccolo looked at the white nightmare that had evolved into a diamond beast, and then at Daniel's thunder beast. Daniel felt Morocco Piccolo's gaze. He looked at Morocco Piccolo fiercely, and then made a throat-cutting gesture. An idea suddenly appeared in Morocco Piccolo's mind. He doesn't look as smart as I thought. Maybe I can do an experiment on this guy, Morocco Piccolo muttered to himself. Piccolo, what are you talking about? Nothing. Morocco Piccolo shook his head. If we want to live, we have to cooperate, and we can't be disloyal. Chapter 21-22. It wasn't just Morocco Bick and Toddy Belster who grouped up. Basically, everyone would choose to group up, gathering in 2s and 3s. Other than Daniel, he was alone. It was like that in prison. Although Daniel was highly educated, his background and actions didn't fit in with the prison. Not to mention making friends here. It was even difficult for him to survive. His cellmates bullied him, others bullied him too. This caused him to become gloomier and more withdrawn. He hated the prison environment and the people here. But in the past, he couldn't do anything in prison. Other than enduring the bullying in silence, he couldn't do anything. But now it was different. He suddenly realized he had become the strongest. Those who bullied him in the past now looked at him with respect and fear. He wanted to kill all these scumbags and get the only chance to survive. However, Daniel hated Morocco Bick the most. He was searching for Morocco Bick's figure. Let's go, Morocco Bick whispered to Toddy Belster when he felt Daniel's gaze. Toddy Belster hurried to catch up with Morocco Bick. The swamp wasn't easy to walk on, greatly affecting their movements. Bick, that four-eyed guy seems to be following us. Ignore him, let's keep going, Morocco Bick said. He doesn't seem to have good intentions. Are we really going to ignore him? Of course I know he doesn't have good intentions, but this is a swamp. There are puddles of water everywhere. That guy's white nightmare evolved into a thunder beast that possesses the power of electricity. If we fight him here, we'll be seeking our own deaths. We're going to fight him. Toddy Belster looked at Morocco Bick in astonishment. Since he has made up his mind to attack us, do you think we can hide? Okay then. We can beat him, right? I don't know, Morocco Bick said with flickering eyes. Morocco Bick and Toddy Belster moved in a hurry. Daniel followed closely behind them. Both sides understood each other's intentions. But Daniel didn't care. He roughly judged that he was the strongest among them. So now, he just needed to kill them one by one. Of course, he had to get rid of Morocco Bick first. It seems to be the edge of the swamp up ahead, Toddy Belster exclaimed in surprise. Go. The two of them hurriedly jumped onto the dry ground. What do we do now? Wait for that guy, Toddy Belster asked. He looked very nervous, but that was not surprising. After all, his work in the past was all mental work. He had never fought anyone before, not even once. In fact, Morocco Bick was equally nervous. But at the same time, Morocco Bick was nervous. He was very clear-headed. The two of them hit on a rock. She watched Daniel swagger over from the swamp. I know you are here. Come on out. I can sense the faint electromagnetism coming from your bodies. You didn't expect this, did you? My Thunder Beast and I have a telepathic connection. Since it can sense you, so can I. Daniel was just like that in the clearing, shouting. Morocco Bick frowned. Telepathy? Does this King Kong beast of mine have the same kind of ability? Morocco Bick touched the King Kong beast, but it didn't give him any special feeling. Are you surprised and curious now? Why can my Thunder Beast and I have a telepathic connection? It's simple, because the Thunder Beast is an advanced evolved version of the White Nightmare, and your King Kong Beast is only at the second level. There is a qualitative difference between us. It's over, we're done for. Bick, we're dead. We can't beat him, Toddy Belster said in horror. You guys stay there. Daniel looked at the rock where Morocco Bick and Toddy Belster were hiding, and raised his finger to point in their direction. The Thunder Beast behind Daniel suddenly released a strong electric light. The rock where Morocco Bick and Toddy Belster were hiding instantly shattered. The two of them covered their heads and scurried away. Daniel stood in place and laughed arrogantly. But at this moment, a black shadow descended from the sky without any warning, pressing Daniel to the ground. It was a malevolent-looking black monster. The black monster had a pair of protruding fangs protruding from its upper lip. Its body was covered in thick hair, and it looked very much like a gorilla. Thunder Beast, save me. Daniel was instantly scared out of his wits. The Thunder Beast immediately released a bolt of lightning at the black monster, which directly pierced through it. The black monster rolled on the ground, but then stood up again. Its chest, which had been pierced by the lightning, quickly healed. Then, the black monster pounced on the Thunder Beast. The Thunder Beast immediately released a terrifying electric current. Morocco Bick and Toddy Belster, who were hiding more than 20 meters away, could almost smell the smell of meat coming from the black monster. But the black monster still wasn't dead. With a swipe of its claws, a piece of Thunder Beast's flesh was torn off. The black monster put the torn flesh in its mouth and chewed. The wounds on its body healed at an even faster rate. The Thunder Beast didn't have such a strong recovery ability. Plus, its master didn't know how to fight, so it couldn't use its full strength. Roar! The black monster roared at the sky. Hurry up and kill it, hurry up and kill it. How much fear do you want? I'll give it all to you. Hurry up and kill it. Daniel felt the aura of death. Daniel wasn't the type of person who fought, but he was indeed very smart. He might be the one who grasped the trick the fastest, and used it to his advantage. After obtaining Daniel's fear, the Thunder Beast was indeed recovering quickly. Piccolo, do you think that black monster is the vicious barbarian witcher that we are hunting? Morocco Bick frowned. If that was the case, it would be troublesome. Daniel's Thunder Beast clearly couldn't beat the black monster. Plus, no matter who won or lost, it wouldn't do them any good. Morocco Bick thought for a moment, then glanced at the bottle he secretly hid in his pocket. Should he use it now? This bottle was his final trump card. Morocco Bick wasn't sure how useful it was. In fact, the contents of the bottle were like a deposit of courage to him. Chapter 21-23. Morocco Bick finally made up his mind. He had to survive. No matter the price, he had to survive. Even if he knew there wasn't anything good inside. Belster, go and attract the monster's attention. You want me to die? No, if I wanted you to die, I'd kill you right now and run away. Then why didn't you do that? Did you forget what that person said? We need to kill a savage demon hunter. Otherwise we'll all die. So there's no point in running away. If you run away now, you'll still die at that person's hands. But can we beat that monster? Toddy Belster believed that Morocco Bick was telling the truth. However, he still had doubts about their combat ability. After all, they couldn't even beat Daniel and his Thunder Beast. What could they do? Morocco Bick watched the battle 20 meters away. Daniel was constantly providing fear to the Thunder Beast. But he couldn't evolve it now. So the only thing he could do was stall for time. No matter what kind of damage the Thunder Beast dealt to the black monster, it could recover at an extremely fast speed. Bick, can we really win? Belster, don't you understand? We have no way out, Morocco Bick said. Okay, go. Morocco Bick didn't care if Belster was willing or not, and pushed him forward. Toddy Belster staggered into the battlefield. The black monster immediately noticed Toddy Belster. Or rather, it already knew about Belster and Morocco Bick, but didn't care. Daniel was quite smart, and immediately ordered the Thunder Beast to attack the black monster. His first thought wasn't revenge, but freedom from the threat of the black monster. Belster didn't know what to do. Fortunately, the black monster was attracted by the Thunder Beast's attack again. Suddenly, King Kong slammed into the black monster from the darkness. However, the two of them were far apart in size, and their strength was like heaven and earth. The black monster sent King Kong flying with a slap. Fortunately, King Kong was known for its toughness, so the slap didn't pose much of a threat. The black monster wanted to take advantage of the fact that the King Kong beast had yet to recover to continue attacking it. However, at that moment, a figure similar in size to the black monster descended from the sky and smashed heavily onto the black monster's head. Before the black monster could react, it was sent flying by the figure's punch. Toddy Belster sucked in a breath of cold air. The black monster hadn't been dealt with yet, and now there was another even more vicious one. The black monster was obviously angered by this newcomer. With a roar, he charged at the newcomer. The big guy was knocked back a few steps, and when he stopped, he threw another punch at the black monster. Toddy Belster's eyes widened as she stared at the big man in shock. How is this possible? Toddy Belster realized that the big man was wearing a prison uniform. However, because of his huge body, the prisoner's clothes had already been stretched to the limit. Moreover, it could be seen from this big guy's actions and some of his characteristics. He was Morocco Piccolo. Maybe Morocco Piccolo. At least his current appearance was hard to believe. This thing that was more ferocious and unsettling than the black monster was really Morocco Piccolo. Daniel's eyes flashed. He also recognized the big guy as Morocco Piccolo. He began to analyze the current situation. He hadn't decided what to do yet. He suddenly realized that he had indeed gotten carried away. He had only analyzed a little bit, and naively thought he had the whole situation under control. Should he leave now? Or join forces with Morocco Piccolo? Or attack him as well? In the end, he decided to join forces with the person he hated the most, because he realized that he really couldn't do anything here alone. At that moment, Morocco Piccolo's strength completely surpassed the black monster. And he wasn't like the black monster who didn't know how to dodge. He still knew a little bit of fighting. Of course, this kind of fighting was mostly practiced in prison. In prison, people were roughly divided into gangs and non-gangs. Morocco Piccolo belonged to the non-gang group. Therefore, fighting and brawling were a common occurrence. As for Toddy Belster, he couldn't help her at all. His white nightmare hadn't evolved yet. Morocco Piccolo grabbed the black monster, and the King Kong beast head-butted it. The black monster vomited black liquid. Then, the thunder beast shot a huge bolt of lightning at the black monster. The black monster's chest exploded, revealing a black bead inside. And because of the lightning strike, cracks appeared on the bead. The black monster also became weak. Its recovery ability was clearly much weaker. Destroy that black bead. Morocco Piccolo and Daniel both realized. That black bead was its core. If the black bead wasn't destroyed, it would never die. At this moment, a figure flashed past like a bolt of lightning. The figure pulled out the black bead. The black monster instantly lost its life force. Its huge body slowly collapsed. That figure was Toddy Belster's white nightmare. His white nightmare hadn't evolved, but it suddenly displayed abnormal speed. Toddy Belster didn't expect it either. When he saw the black bead, he guessed it was the key. But he was anxious and couldn't do anything. In his anxiety, his white nightmare suddenly burst forth with astonishing speed. This was a result that no one had expected. After the black monster fell, the three became nervous. Daniel guarded against Morocco Piccolo and Toddy Belster. Although Toddy Belster had finished off the black monster, he wasn't sure if Morocco Piccolo could maintain his sanity. Morocco Bic was hesitating whether he should kill Daniel now. I have another suggestion. Let's work together. If the rules don't require us to kill each other, we'll keep working together. Daniel, as you can see, you have no chance of winning if you fight us now, Morocco Piccolo said. The others might also have evolved white nightmare. You might be one step ahead of us, but others might be able to catch up to you. So working with us is your best choice. You can't kill a vicious barbarian hunter alone. Why did you become like this, like that monster? Of course it's the power my King Kong beast gave me, Morocco Piccolo said. Chapter 21-24. We've completed the mission. Can we go back and report to Jerwan Melson now? Toddy Belster didn't want to face a second vicious barbarian hunter anymore. He just wanted to escape as soon as possible. But Daniel's words made him fall into the abyss. Daniel still had that dark expression and said calmly, "Do you really think we completed the mission? Didn't we?" Morocco Bic turned to look at Daniel in surprise. That guy said at the beginning that we could team up to complete the mission. But he didn't say how many people could complete the mission in a team at most. According to what he said at the time, even 17 people working together was allowed. 17 people killing a vicious barbarian hunter? Do you think he'll let us go so easily? Daniel said with a cold smile. Morocco Bic's face frowned. Daniel's words weren't speculation. They were facts. Morocco Bic hadn't thought about it at first, but after hearing what Daniel said, he immediately realized the problem. Jura van Melsen had even said that they could kill each other. In fact, he had already planned to let them kill each other. Imagine if a few people teamed up to kill a vicious barbarian hunter. Jura van Melsen had told them that this vicious barbarian hunter could only belong to one person. Then how would the few people in the team decide who the prey belonged to? Of course, they would kill each other. In other words, we still need to kill 2 more vicious barbarian hunters? That's right. The 3 of them set off with a heavy heart. Toddy Belster held the black bead. It was his trophy. Daniel didn't say anything. Of course, he couldn't say anything. On the one hand, Morocco Bic and Toddy Belster were allies. On the other hand, Toddy Belster had played a key role in the battle. Regardless of how strong Toddy Belster was, he was indeed qualified to get this trophy. The sky was still gray, which made the 3 of them feel depressed. Humans were naturally resistant to darkness. Humans were actually creatures that liked light. So for humans, this kind of environment was actually like the wilderness. The fear in the depths of human hearts would continue to increase as time passed. On the way, the 3 of them were silent, until they met the second vicious barbarian hunter. This vicious barbarian hunter was bigger than the first one. They met at a corner. At that time, this vicious barbarian devil was eating people. He had eaten one of the prisoners. The trio's expressions changed drastically, and they immediately retreated. After the ferocious barbarian hunter saw the 3 of them, apart from the initial shock, it actually revealed a casual expression. "You guys go, don't appear in front of me again. I'm not hungry yet." The ferocious barbarian hunter actually spoke, and his speech was very clear. "If you insist on staying and becoming my food, I don't mind. Also, a word of advice, don't always follow Jura van Melsen's rules." The 3 of them exchanged glances and stared at the ferocious barbarian demon before them in shock. They had originally thought that the vicious barbarian witchers were wild beasts and monsters. But at this moment, they felt that things weren't that simple. Although this savage hunter demon had shown a wave of bloody scenes when they had met, he was still a savage hunter demon. But what was even more unbelievable was that, judging from the vicious barbarian witch's words, it could be seen that his thoughts were clear. He was not an intelligent beast. His speech and actions were that of a human. The 3 of them even felt that the monster in front of them was a human in the clothes of a monster. "Are you surprised?" the vicious barbarian witch said in a self-mocking tone. "Guess what I've become?" The 3's expressions changed drastically again. The vicious barbarian witch's smile made them even more uncomfortable, because they thought of a possibility, and it was very likely to be true. This vicious barbarian, which had actually been a human before. But now, why had he become a monster? Since you've participated in this game, there are only 2 paths for you to choose. One is to be eaten, and the other is to become my kind. Were you really a human before? Morocco Bic asked. Morocco, am I not straightforward enough? The 3 of them felt their scalps go numb. This monster knew Morocco Bic? Who exactly are you? Morocco Bic exclaimed. I'm Anto Trezek. Morocco Bic felt like his scalp was going to explode. He remembered Anto Trezek. He remembered this person. He used to be a tyrant in Prison 7. He was a big guy who was very good at fighting, and had gathered a bunch of lackeys in the prison. When Chen came in, he even tried to bully him. In the end, he and his lackeys were kicked to the ground by Chen Sanquan. Because Morocco Bic had been in and out of Prison 7, he didn't know Anto Trezek's situation. Even if he didn't see Anto Trezek in prison again, he wouldn't wonder why. He might have been released on parole. Or he might have been transferred to another prison. It was all possible. But he didn't expect to meet Anto-Trezek here. I like your expression. Very surprised, right? Anto-Trezek said in a self-mocking tone. Why did you become like this? Didn't you become like me too? How much better do you think you are? Me. I'm different from you. Morocco Bick shook his head. Different? Seems really different. Anto-Trezek tilted his head and looked at Morocco Bick. What's wrong with you? Your aura makes me feel very uncomfortable. I said we're different. Tell me the truth about this game. You want to know? All of you want to know? Yes. All three had the same expression. No one wanted to become a monster, especially a monster that needed to eat people. This isn't a game. It's a trap. No one can win this game. The victory Jurawan Melson mentioned is actually the most tragic result. You're already miserable enough. Morocco Bick wasn't mocking Anto-Trezek. Yes, I'm miserable enough now, but at least I still have myself. At least I'm a predator now. But the winner of this game is someone else's prey. Someone else's prey? Whose prey? Speak clearly. What do you think the essence of this game is? Of course, it's to pick a qualified prey and sacrifice it to that thing. Chapter 21-25. What is that thing? The three of them all noticed the thing in Anto-Trezek's words. The creator and pioneer of this world, Anto-Trezek said. Don't tell me you're talking about God? Stop joking. You can call it God or devil, Anto-Trezek said. Anto-Trezek said, you'll understand how terrifying that thing is after staying here for a long time. How long have you been here? I came here after you were released from prison, Anto-Trezek said. Anto-Trezek said, every once in a while, a group of people will come in, and after many rounds of selection, only one will be left and sacrificed to that thing. The sacrifice you're talking about is actually being eaten by that thing, right? You can understand it that way. Then why not leave a few more? Isn't it better to have more food? Hee, don't you understand? The last one is definitely the White Nightmare shapeshifter that has evolved the most times. The value of a high-level White Nightmare shapeshifter is more valuable than 100 ordinary White Nightmare shapeshifters. Therefore, to remove the impurities and keep the best food, isn't that what humans do too? They remove the impurities and keep the essence. Then this process will definitely produce the best candidates? Or food. Of course. Your current mission is to kill vicious barbarian witchers, right? That means me and my own kind. What happens next is to kill each other. No matter what you do, you won't be able to avoid it. Perhaps some people are already killing each other. Speaking of you, what happened to you? You didn't die, nor did you become food, but you became like this, and you still have your own consciousness. Because I killed my White Nightmare and devoured it, Anto-Trezek said. Everyone's eyes widened as they turned to look at their White Nightmare. This is why you became like this. The process is a bit complicated. Speaking of which, the process is a little complicated. First, these White Nightmares are actually a part of that thing. They have no self-consciousness, and the contract between you and it is actually to make it a part of you. Therefore, you will also have many of the exclusive abilities of the White Nightmares. However, this contract is not a complete fusion. After all, you have your own thoughts. And it is a container without thoughts. Its role is to absorb your negative emotions, and then complete its own evolution. Of course, they can also devour each other to complete their evolution. At the end of this game, you will slowly come into contact with the truth. Either you will be sacrificed, or you will be killed by the other participants. At that time, I wasn't willing to accept it. I wasn't willing to be devoured, so a few of us thought of this method. We devoured our own White Nightmare, and truly fused with them to avoid the fate of being sacrificed, Anto-Trezek said calmly. Anto-Trezek said calmly, but there's a problem with devouring each other. Our emotions and thoughts tend to be chaotic. Those who have defeated and devoured other people's White Nightmare will fall into madness after devouring their own White Nightmare. Coincidentally, I didn't devour other people's White Nightmare, so all I received were my own negative emotions. Why can you avoid the fate of being sacrificed after devouring your own White Nightmare? Because that thing is formed from countless powerful and chaotic thoughts. It doesn't have high intelligence, but it has boundless power. Its power covers this chaotic world. So you and I can't escape its senses in any corner of this world. We can't avoid our final fate either. The only way is to deceive that thing. So I completely fused with the white nightmare and made it think that I am a part of it. So we only have one choice. The choice is up to you. I'm only telling you the truth. Of course, you will know the truth soon. Then you will face the same choice. The three of them had serious expressions. They could know for themselves whether Anto Trezek's words were true or not. But what if it was true? Do you have any suggestions? Don't die too early, Anto Trezek said. Right now Mirror Lake Manor was quiet. The moonlight was reflected on the lake's surface. The entire manor was filled with peace and tranquility. Chen Zhao was sleeping soundly with Fei Lai in his arms, but the vibration of his phone woke them up. Fei Lai pushed Chen Zhao lightly. Darling phone. Chen Zhao picked up the phone with his eyes closed. President. Helitha's voice came from the other end. Helith, what time is it now? 2:30 in the morning. Tell me what's the matter. The bottle containing the crazy corpse demon's saliva that I gave you last time broke. Huh. Chen Zhao was suddenly much more awake. Do you know what I used that corpse demon's saliva for? Someone you don't like, but you need his help. Helith was as calm as ever. Helith was actually very smart, but she was always cold on the outside and warm on the inside. She was usually quiet, but that didn't mean she didn't know how to analyze things. She was different from West's big picture perspective and Lisa's high intelligence. Helith was more attentive to details. In fact, a person with outstanding talent in magic would also have extraordinary abilities in other areas. When did it happen? About 50 minutes. At least that's when I felt the bottle break. Why did you only tell me now? I'll try to find the location for you. No need, Chen Zhao said. I know where it is. Where is it? Are you coming too? Can I? Okay. Wait for me at the entrance of prison 7 first. After hanging up, Chen Zhao patted Fei Lai's shoulder gently. Fei Lai, I'm going out to do something. Okay. Fei Lai was still sleepy. She didn't even want to open her eyes. Chen Zhao quickly changed his clothes and hurried out. Soon, he arrived at the entrance of prison 7. Meanwhile, Helios arrived a step later. President, I want to learn flying spells. Do you have any suggestions? Helith felt that her mobility was too weak, especially when it came to long-distance movement. She'd left before Chen Zhao, but she'd arrived later than him. This made her realize the importance of flying spells more and more. I'll help you ask. Maybe Mr. Zhang has related spells. If he does, I'll get them for you. Chapter 21-26. Fuck, it's so uncomfortable here. It's a prison. How comfortable do you think it is? Should I give you 5-star treatment? By Luo. I heard that there's a white nightmare legend in prison 7. Is it true? Yes, there is a legend about the white nightmare, but that's just nonsense. But people often die here. Of course. The prison guards hold boxing matches every few days. Isn't it normal for people to die? Also, to cover up the real cause of death, they made up the legend. What's wrong with that? That's true. There's footsteps outside. Footsteps? Did you hear? Wait. I heard it too. That's weird. The prison guards shouldn't be this diligent. It's already so late. Ghost hand. Helios reached into the darkness. President, I've adjusted all the angles of the surveillance cameras. Your magic array is convenient. Chen Zhao and Helios walked down the corridor of the prison. To Chen Zhao, this place had his memories too. Helios suddenly felt a gaze. She tilted her head and glanced at the cell's bars. 2 prisoners were looking at them from inside. A malicious smile appeared on Helios' face. Then, 2 green skulls appeared around Helios, surrounding her body. The 2 prisoners' faces paled in fear. They screamed and ran away from the bars. Chen Zhao ignored Helios' bad taste. He searched for Morocco Bic's traces. However, Morocco Bic seemed to have disappeared. Chen Zhao couldn't sense his aura at all. Chen Zhao found Morocco Bic's cell. It was empty. There wasn't a single person. President, where's the target? Disappeared, Chen Zhao said. But there's some strange magic waves here. Let's search. We should be able to find some clues. It was a prison, but to Chen Zhao and Helios, It was like entering an uninhabited land. Finally, Chen Zhao found the source of the magic waves. There's a lower level in this prison. The magic waves are coming from there. With that, Chen Zhao jumped to the bottom. He stomped on the ground and jumped in. Halleys followed closely behind and went down. Chen Zhao saw a large number of white nightmares surrounding one person. The person had been sitting cross-legged on the ground. Sensing the arrival of uninvited guests, he immediately opened his eyes and looked at Chen Zhao and Helis. "Kill them!" the man shouted. All the white nightmares charged at Chen Zhao and Helis. Chen Zhao didn't even need to do anything in this situation. Halleys was enough. The aura of death instantly spread out. Those white nightmares instantly died upon coming into contact with the aura of death. He couldn't even get close to Chen Zhao and Helis. The man raised his eyebrows and spread his arms. A black hole appeared behind him. The man fell backward and disappeared into the black hole. Seeing that the black hole was about to close, Chen Zhao immediately charged inside. However, after he entered the black hole, he realized that he was in midair. "Guild leader, save me. I can't fly." Chen Zhao turned his head and saw that Halleys had followed them in. And she was doing a free fall. Harad could not fly, so there was nothing she could do. At the very least, most conventional methods would not be able to deal with free fall. Chen Zhao reached out and caught the falling Halleys. Just then, Chen Zhao felt a terrifying aura rush toward him. Boom! The aura hit Chen Zhao directly. Halleys flew out of Chen Zhao's hand. Chen Zhao hurriedly steadied himself and grabbed Halleys. Small world. This place was enveloped in someone else's small world. But wasn't this small world a bit too big? Just then, the person from before appeared before Chen Zhao again. This time, his aura was many times stronger than before. His entire body exuded a vast and boundless aura. Strange. How did he become so much stronger? Chen Zhao tilted his head and looked at the person. At this moment, this person was clearly a Shangqing realm cultivator. Two rats actually dared to come here. They're asking for death. Guild leader. I can feel that the environment here is continuously transferring power to him. His power is coming from the environment here, not his own, Harold said. Huh. How come I don't feel it? What's being transmitted to him isn't magic power, nor is it spiritual energy, but negative emotions. Oh, I see. This place is filled with huge amounts of negative emotions. Look at the clouds in the sky. They're a huge collection of negative emotions. The person saw that Chen Zhao and Halleys were chatting among themselves and didn't care about him at all. This infuriated him. Ants, do you know who you're facing? I'm a god here. Chen Zhao raised an eyebrow and glanced at the person. God? Aren't gods too worthless recently? Hearing Chen Zhao's words, the person was immediately enraged. Idiot who doesn't know what respect is, die. The person raised his hand. Terrifying negative emotions gathered into a huge palm and slapped down at Chen Zhao and Halleys. Guild leader. I can't handle this guy. Harris didn't move. She roughly knew who she could deal with. Who couldn't she handle? Okay, leave it to me. Chen Zhao didn't hold back. Chen Zhao suddenly slapped through the air. The huge palm formed by the power of the world collided with the huge palm formed by negative emotions. A look of surprise appeared on the man's face. You're not a nobody in the spirit world. With this kind of strength, someone who could take his move was definitely not a nobody. He knew how powerful he was now. Chen Zhao being able to take the move meant that he was at least at or close to this level. How could someone with such great strength not be famous in the spiritual world? Of course, in reality, Chen Zhao was indeed a nobody in the spiritual world. Apart from a few spiritualists who knew Chen Zhao, most people didn't know him at all. Although he only took one move, Chen Zhao could roughly analyze the person's strength. Being able to skillfully control the small world meant that he was already familiar with this power. However, his strength hadn't reached the true Shangqing realm. It was about half a step into the Shangqing realm that Chen Zhao had experienced in the past. He wasn't weak, but there was still a gap from the true Shangqing realm. Two people half a step into the Shangqing realm couldn't be compared to a complete Shangqing realm master. But to regular spiritualists, he was still very powerful. For example, a master like Halleys had no chance of winning against someone half a step into the Shangqing realm. Chapter 21-27. However, this kind of master was really nothing before Chen Zhao. After all, he was borrowing someone else's power. How strong could he be? Everyone could be compared to a water tank, so there was a limit to the amount of power they could store. The difference between half a step into the Shangqing realm and a complete Shangqing realm was not just a half, but a zero. However, Chen Zhao had never heard of this master. A figure of this level shouldn't be a nameless figure in the spirit world. Was he pretending to be low-key like Chen Zhao? Eyes, have you heard of this person? No, I don't think he's a living person. Eyes' senses were sharper than Chen Zhao's. His soul isn't complete, and it doesn't fit perfectly with his body. It feels like an incomplete soul has taken over someone else's body. Smart girl. The person looked at Eyes. If you're 50 years older, you might have heard of my name. 50 years old? You were one of the people involved in the North American riot 50 years ago. Eyes asked in surprise. That's right. I'm Ronald Johnson. I'm also called the Glory of Day in the spiritual world. Do you know this name? Harold shook her head. She had never heard of this name or this title. Seems like it's been too long. It's been half a century, and no one remembers my name anymore. Ronald Johnson sighed. But it's okay. In the future, I'll make this name resound throughout North America. No, this time, it'll resound throughout the entire spiritual world. You think you can do that? I'm afraid it's not enough. You can't even beat our president, Eyes said directly. Him? I can't beat him? Ronald Johnson looked at Chen Zhao in disdain. Maybe he can fight against me, but he's nothing in front of our huge plan. Barely? I think you're mistaken. Eyes shook her head. Suddenly, Ronald Johnson felt Chen Zhao move. But even so, he couldn't stop Chen Zhao. Too fast. Chen Zhao was really too fast. In the blink of an eye, he appeared before him. Ronald's neck was already in Chen Zhao's grip. What I mean is that you're no match for my guild leader. You can't even be considered a match for him. Ronald Johnson wanted to break free, but he couldn't. Chen Zhao's grip was too strong. Ronald Johnson started attacking Chen Zhao's body, but his attacks couldn't even tickle Chen Zhao. Ronald felt Chen Zhao increase his strength. His soul immediately left the body. When Chen Zhao and Helis saw Ronald Johnson's soul, they were shocked. Because half of Ronald Johnson's soul was human, and the other half was a piece of white meat. After leaving his body, Ronald Johnson sped up and flew toward the black cloud in the sky. But no matter how fast he was, he couldn't be faster than Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao instantly stopped Ronald Johnson's soul and grabbed it. Just then, the black clouds in the sky turned into a giant that smashed down at Chen Zhao. Raising an eyebrow, Chen Zhao punched the sky. Bang! In an instant, the giant was blown to smithereens by Chen Zhao's punch. Of course, Chen Zhao didn't think it was over just like that. The aura had only weakened slightly, but it hadn't completely dissipated. The black clouds were also gathering again. Just then, Chen Zhao felt a sinister aura from below. Looking down, he realized that Helis had taken the body that Ronald Johnson had abandoned. That body was already under Helis' control. Moreover, that body had Ronald Johnson's power, and could borrow the power of this world. Then, the small world of the body enveloped Chen Zhao. The black clouds in the sky also calmed down. President, the black clouds in the sky don't have a consciousness, and the source of this body's power is the black clouds in the sky. So you can use the body's power to deceive the black clouds. Good job. Chen Zhao nodded and turned to look at Ronald Johnson, who was being held by his hand. I'm suddenly very interested in the huge plan you mentioned. Can you tell me about it? You can try to make me talk. Maybe you can make me talk. But if you just ask like this, I can't tell you the truth. Helis, I'll leave it to you. Guild leader, it shouldn't be a complete body. It should be a split body of some soul. So none of my methods have any effect on it. Although I can make it feel pain, I can't make it submit, Shifeng said, shaking his head. The scene where the black clouds in the sky had turned into a sky-high giant. Almost everyone in this small world had seen it. Everyone looked up at the sky in disbelief. It was as if they had seen a legend. No one knew what had happened. Why had the black clouds turned into a sky-high giant, and then disappeared? But the process had been too short. No one could understand. Trezek, do you know what happened just now? I don't know. Anto Trzek shook his head. I've never seen that before. But that thing is the ruler of this world. You mean that thing is the culprit behind this scheme? The three of them gaped. After all, they'd been wondering if they could take a gamble. It seemed like he could kill the thing that Anto Trzek was talking about. But when they heard Anto Trzek say that the sky-high giant was the culprit, they completely despaired. How could humans fight against that thing? It was impossible. Humans couldn't defeat that thing at all. No, I can't stay here. I don't want to become that thing's food. I don't want to become a monster. I want to escape. Tell me, how do I escape? How do I escape from here? Toddy Belster shouted in horror. Kill that thing. Anto Trzek pointed at the black clouds in the sky and said, if you can destroy it, you can escape from here. Kill that thing. If I can do it, do I need to escape? Toddy Belster was almost in despair. His mentality was about to collapse. Morocco Bick and Daniel were silent. Is there no other way? Morocco Bick asked. At least I don't know of any other way. Maybe you can think of a way with Jura van Melsen. Maybe he has a way. Of course, the premise is that you can beat him. Chapter 21-28. Morocco Bick, Toddy Belster and Daniel left. All three of them had a lot on their minds, and were very worried about their future. According to Anto Trzek, Jura van Melsen might have a solution. But he also said that Jura van Melsen was very powerful. It could even be said to be terrifying. With their abilities, it was impossible for them to defeat Jura van Melsen. As for Anto Trzek, he had lost hope long ago. Even if he escaped now, he didn't know where to go. Moreover, it was almost impossible to defeat Jura van Melsen. He had seen Jura van Melsen fight before. Even if there was a 1 in 10,000 chance that he could defeat Jura van Melsen by accident, it would be useless. After defeating Jura van Melsen, they would face the cruelest enemy. Just then, Anto Trzek heard footsteps. Anto Trzek licked his lips. Another prey had come knocking on his door. He hoped that it wasn't someone difficult to deal with. He had talked so much with Morocco Bick, Toddy Belster, and Daniel just now. It wasn't because he was nostalgic, or because he was full. It was purely because he wasn't confident that he could defeat all three at once. The three White Nightmares had all evolved to a certain level. It was already difficult for him to defeat one. If he had to deal with three, he might get himself into trouble. Anto Trzek saw two figures walking toward him from the distance. One of them was a girl dressed in black. The other was Asian. They didn't have any White Nightmares with them. What a strange combination, Anto Trzek muttered. But this didn't mean that he would pity them. Anto Trzek suddenly jumped in front of the two and pounced at them, baring his fangs and claws. Chun Zhao and Hele Eyes glanced at each other. Hele Eyes raised her arm and grabbed at the air. Anto Trzek was instantly caught by a black hand. This guy's aura is similar to Ronald Johnson, but he's so weak, Hele Eyes said. He's just a small fry. He's not valuable. Kill him, Chun Zhao said. Wait. No. I'm not a small fry. Anto Trzek heard their conversation. How could he not understand that he had kicked a metal plate? Huh. This guy still has his own consciousness and rationality. Helly's looked at Anto Trzek in surprise. Put it down. Morocco Bick, Toddy Belster, and Daniel killed another two savage witchers. According to Anto Trzek, these ferocious hunters might have been humans in the past. Therefore, during the hunting process, they observed carefully. Although these vicious barbarian witchers had become monsters and had lost their sense of self, they were still able to control themselves. However, some of their characteristics were indeed human characteristics. This also increased Anto Trzek's credibility. This made the three of them even more worried. Daniel's Thunder Beast had evolved once again, becoming even more powerful. When they returned to the assembly point, a few people had already returned. Among these people, some were fighting as a team, but they only managed to kill one vicious barbarian hunter. Obviously, they did not carefully analyze Jura van Melsen's words. After another hour, those who had left came back one after another. Moreover, there were many unfamiliar faces among them. These people were also wearing prison uniforms, but they were obviously not prisoners of Los Angeles Prison 7. There were about 100 people in total. Just then Jura van Melsen arrived. My children, welcome back. Jurven Melson still had that sinister smile on his face. His face was full of ridicule. I believe that many of you have come into contact with part of the truth while carrying out your respective missions. I don't deny that this is a conspiracy, but you should also understand that you have no choice. He knew that the three of them had met Anto Trezek. Morocco Bic's heart skipped a beat. If that was the case, he also knew about their conversation? No, he didn't know that the three of them had met Anto Trezek. He knew of certain existences here, and he knew the truth. But he did not care whether the truth was exposed or not, because no one here dared to resist him, and no one could resist him. There was a commotion in the crowd. A few people's eyes flashed with eagerness. Morocco Bic noticed those people. Where did they come from? Those people looked like they were from other prisons. Could the other prisons also be connected to this place? Just then, a bright light burst out of those people's eyes. Morocco Bic thought to himself, they are going to make a move. Sure enough, the four people rushed at Jurven Melson at the same time. Holy light! Dawn! Glory! Starlight! The four people shouted, and their bodies burst out with the powerful power of holy light at the same time. The four people all raised their arms high and put their palms together. A sword formed by the power of holy light slashed at Jurven Melson. Jurven Melson seemed to be unable to react, and the four swords of holy light instantly slashed into his body. However, Jurven Melson's smile did not change. He reached out and grabbed one of the swords of holy light. Crack! Jurven Melson's palm that grabbed the blade of the sword of holy light made a sizzling sound and smoke rose. The power generated by the negative emotions on his body reacted violently with the power of holy light. You entered San Francisco's first prison for this day, right? Jurven Melson looked at the four people. The power of holy light on you is so strong. You should be from the church. Did the church send you to kill us? Evil, stop talking nonsense and die. Die. Even if I want to die, you are not qualified to kill me. Jurven Melson suddenly increased the strength of his palm. Bang! The blade of the sword of holy light was directly crushed by Jurven Melson. Your holy light is useless in front of me, so let me purify you of death. Countless black tentacles burst out of Jurven Melson's body, and these black tentacles wrapped around the four people. After these black tentacles wrapped around the four people, the end of the tentacles drilled into the four people's mouths. The skin of the four people was drying up at an alarming rate. Their power of holy light did not bring them hope. Hiss! The skin of these four people was directly torn open, revealing a black spiritual body inside. The souls of these four people had been contaminated, and now they were called fallen souls. Chapter 21-29. Wisdana, you didn't sleep last night? Yonghua glanced at the time. It was 6 in the morning. Even a cultivator like him would find it hard to stay awake for a whole night. If he didn't sleep, he wouldn't have the energy, and the power of his spells would be reduced. But that was because Yonghua had a normal schedule. It was a good habit of sleeping early and waking up early. For example, he woke up at 6 in the morning to exercise. Wisdana rubbed her forehead. Yang, I found some unusual information. Oh, what did you find? Last night, after Blitz mentioned the incident from 50 years ago, I looked through some files. I found that White Nightmare wasn't the only prison in Prison 7, and it wasn't the only prison in Los Angeles that had unknown deaths. Wisdana handed a file to Yonghua. Look, this isn't an isolated case. In the past 10 years, more than 4,000 prisons in America have all had the same thing, and it's happening frequently. The White Nightmare is spreading more and more. Yonghua took the file and flipped through it. He found that the rumors about the White Nightmare were spreading in an unusual way. It seemed that someone was intentionally spreading the rumors about the White Nightmare. In addition, in the past 10 years, more than 50,000 criminals have gone missing. Most of these disappeared criminals were treated as jailbreakers. However, many of the criminals that have been recorded have disappeared for no reason. The information recorded in these files was shocking to the eye. There were nearly 5,000 prisons in America, and more than 4,000 had records of unconventional disappearances and deaths. Moreover, all of them pointed to the White Nightmare. This made people ponder over the issue. 50,000 people went missing in the past 10 years, And there were definitely some that weren't recorded. After all, the number was huge, so it was inevitable to miss something. Look at this file. Yang took the file. It was the construction records of all the prisons in America. Almost all of the prisons that had accidents had undergone engineering modifications. It seemed that someone had secretly set up a huge network without anyone noticing. This can't be done by one or two people. It's likely that a large organization is planning something. That's what I'm worried about. We know it's not a good thing, but we don't know anything about the other party's plan. Can you find out where the prisons are being built? And the blueprints? I can, but there are too many of them. It will take a lot of time. We don't have to investigate everything. As long as we investigate a part of it, we can make a deduction based on that part, Yang said worriedly. I have a very bad feeling. I hope nothing bad will happen. Yang's expression was solemn. The disappearance of tens of thousands of people was a major event that could not be ignored in any place. But here, in a country where human rights were paramount, almost everyone ignored it. It had to be said that this was a great irony. Of course, Yang did not have the habit of changing this legal system. As the saying goes, one should not meddle in politics if one is not in a position, not to mention the affairs of other countries. However, as the consultant of the psionic team, Yang was still very serious about his job. Anto Trzek said in a trembling voice. He told them everything he knew. There was no need to hide anything, nor was there a need to. After all, he had already said it once before. It was just a retelling. Guild leader, I think I've figured out their intentions. Someone probably wanted to create a calamity emissary. At least the process is the same, said Heliais. Calamity emissary? It's not something a living person can think of. In the past, there was a powerful spiritualist who sensed that his life was coming to an end. Then he started a series of preparations. He found the evilest person in the world and extracted the negative emotions of this evil person. Then, he released his soul and mana source from his rotten body and used the negative emotions as a breeding ground to nurture his soul. Finally, a calamity emissary was born. But is it the same as a calamity emissary? The process is actually the same, but it's 10,000 times stronger. Someone plans to use all the prisoners in America and their negative emotions as a breeding ground to nurture a monster. It can't be called a calamity emissary anymore, right? A calamity emissary, Anto Trzek interrupted. Someone set up a passage connecting all the prisons in America to this place. This passage is not only for passage, but also to absorb the negative emotions of all the prisoners. How many prisoners are there in America? Even Chen Zhao gasped. He didn't know the exact number. However, he knew that America had the highest number of prisoners in the world. More than 2 million, Anto Trzek said. About 0.5% of the total population. What kind of monster would be nurtured with the negative emotions of more than 2 million people, and the souls and mana source of thousands of powerful spiritualists? Moreover, these 2 million people were not ordinary people. Most of these people were criminals who committed crimes, and were extremely vicious. Killing and arson were common to them. But why did they bring these prisoners here? Logically speaking, they should have set up this huge plan a long time ago. All they need to do is to continuously absorb the negative emotions of the prisoners scattered across the United States through the pipeline. Those prisoners who are absorbed won't die immediately. Once their negative emotions are absorbed, they will only become weak and listless. It won't affect them too much. This way, it's safer and more covert, and it won't be easily discovered. However, they brought some prisoners here, which increased the risk of them being exposed. It's the body, Harold said. The calamity emissary's body hasn't matured yet. It needs a body that's also filled with impurity and corruption, so they brought these prisoners here. Then they pick out the best and fuse with them. This person or group of people might be survivors of the war 50 years ago. Chen Zhao narrowed his eyes. I suddenly have the urge to devour this calamity emissary. Anto Trzek shuddered. What's wrong with this guy? I've said it so clearly. Didn't he understand? That's a dangerous existence. This guy actually wants to devour such a terrifying thing. Is that something a human can devour? He had only devoured his own negative emotions, and became like this. What does this guy want to become? I've decided. This guy is mine, Chen Zhao said with certainty. Chapter 2130. President, if you want this guy, it's best to find its real body. The black cloud in the sky isn't its real body. Can you sense where its real body is? No. This alternate space is completely enveloped by its aura. I can't find its exact location. Do you know where that thing is? Chen Zhao looked at Anto Trezek. No. You really don't know? Really? Anto Trezek said helplessly. Anto Trezek said helplessly. I've never been to that place, but Jura van Melsen should know. Who's this Jura van Melsen? He's the one who brought me here, Anto Trezek said. Maybe he's not alive either. Then where can we find him? The building in the middle of the swamp. We call it the Colosseum. Of course, only humans fight there. Anto Trezek pointed in a direction, but he clearly didn't want to go. Right now, he just wanted to be a quiet monster. To eat a few humans who trespassed into his territory every day. That was his greatest wish right now. He didn't want to challenge Jura van Melsen, or that thing that was close to God. But Chen Zhao and Helis didn't plan on letting him go just like that. Lead the way, Chen Zhao requested. He didn't care if Anto Trezek was willing or not. I don't want to go. I don't want to die. Your choice now is to either kill you now, or lead the way for us. The answer was obvious. Anto Trezek gave in. Compared to that terrifying thing, Anto Trezek was more afraid of Chen Zhao and Helis. Because both of them had that kind of willful personality, they wouldn't listen to someone else's will. Anto Trezek led the way. But when he turned around to look at Chen Zhao and Helis, he realized that there was another person beside them. The person was expressionless, his eyes rolling back. He walked forward step by step. Chen Zhao and Helis followed behind, but their feet didn't touch the swamp. They looked like they were floating on the swamp. Who is he? He wasn't with you earlier. When did he appear? Anto Trezek asked. He's not a living person. He's just an empty shell, Harold said calmly. The aura of this empty shell could conceal their movements. Otherwise, as outsiders, the two of them would be constantly attacked by the black cloud of negative emotions. Therefore, this body was indispensable. Anto Trezek did not show any expression when he saw that person. There was no sign of anger on his face. It seemed like it was really as they said, this was just a shell. Although he was very curious as to where this body came from. However, when he thought about their identities, it wasn't that strange. The Colosseum wasn't too far away. Soon they saw a crude building. The so-called Colosseum was actually built by piling up countless boulders. Although the scale was huge, there was no sense of beauty. There were countless white nightmares standing on the messy stone walls. They used the stone wall as their nest. We can't go any further. If we do, the white nightmares will tear us to pieces. Anto Trezek looked at Chen Zhao, his face full of terror. Go on, go forward. I don't want to die. Your current attitude will only hasten your death. Helis looked at Anto Trezek with a sinister look. Fine, fine. Anto Trezek turned around. His legs were stiff. He wasn't willing to take a step forward at all. Just then, the white nightmares on the stone wall saw them. But what puzzled Anto Trezek was that the white nightmares didn't attack. Usually, as long as an outsider entered their field of vision, they would attack directly. Why didn't they attack at all this time? Were they not close enough? However, they had already reached the bottom of the stone wall. Anto Trezek followed Chen Zhao and Harold into the Colosseum. At the center of the Colosseum, a dozen people and their white nightmares were engaged in a fierce battle. Chen Zhao, Harold, and Anto Trezek's arrival didn't attract anyone's attention. Even though Anto Trezek looked like a pure monster. In the surroundings of the Colosseum, there were still many people watching the fierce battle in the middle. Their attention was focused on this bloody battle. Of course, even without the battle, Anto Trezek wasn't that eye-catching. Because many people's white nightmares were even more twisted than Anto Trezek's. So, even if someone saw Anto Trezek, they would at most think he was Chen Zhao or Harold's white nightmares. Just then Chen Zhao felt a gaze land on him. Chen Zhao turned his head and looked in the direction of the gaze. When Morocco Piccolo saw Chen Zhao, his expression changed. Then when he saw Anto Trezek beside Chen Zhao, His expression changed again. Why was Anto Trezek here? Did they know each other? Oh, Anto Trezek had been taught a lesson by Chen Zhao before. So they definitely knew each other. Chen Zhao walked toward Morocco Piccolo. Not only did he see Morocco Piccolo, but he also saw Toddy Belster beside him. As for Daniel, Chen Zhao completely ignored him. Why are you here? Morocco Piccolo asked in a low voice. To save you, of course. After all, I sent you into danger. How can I ignore you? Chen Zhao's expression was filled with fake concern. Morocco Piccolo's veins bulged. He thought, you also know that it's dangerous here? However, Chen Zhao wasn't very interested in Morocco Piccolo. Chen Zhao turned his gaze to Toddy Belster. Mr. Belster, I didn't think that we'd meet again here. Are you here to solve the problem too? Solve what problem? I shouldn't even be here. Do you have a way to bring me out? Please bring me out, I can pay you handsomely. Mr. Belster, don't joke around. You're a famous spiritualist. Since you came here voluntarily, you must have a way to leave. I look forward to your performance later. Sir, I'm not a spiritualist. This is all a misunderstanding. I'm not a spiritualist. Toddy was about to cry. The ring you're wearing is the same as mine. Normal people can't even get a ring like this, so you don't have to hide it from me. Chapter 2131. Toddy Belster recalled a client he'd once had. The client had no money, so he'd left this ring as a deposit. Then the client never appeared again. Toddy thought that the ring looked nice, so he'd kept it on his finger. Toddy Belster took off the ring on her finger. Chen Zhao looked at Toddy Belster in surprise. If Toddy Belster still had some magic waves when he wore the ring, then he'd become a normal person. After taking the ring off, he'd become a normal person. There was no magic on him at all. You're a normal person? Chen Zhao's expression froze. I am. You're a liar? Chen Zhao narrowed his eyes. It wasn't that he hadn't met scammers before, but there weren't many people who could trick him. Toddy Belster was the only one who'd tricked him so thoroughly. Of course, Toddy Belster wasn't someone who'd tricked him voluntarily, so Chen Zhao didn't plan on killing him for now. Morocco Toddy, you know him? Daniel asked darkly. Chen Zhao glanced at Daniel. Hallie's also frowned. President, can I kill him? Never mind, Chen Zhao said indifferently. He might not be able to leave here alive. What did you say? Daniel was enraged. Perhaps because of the sudden power, Daniel's previous cautiousness had turned into arrogance. This was a process that most acquired spiritualists had to go through. They thought that the power they'd obtained was unique. They thought that they could already fight against everything. They thought that they had everything. Some people ended up on a path of no return because of this. Of course, most of them were killed by their seniors. Suddenly, a terrifying aura surged toward them. Boom! A beam of black light descended from the sky and exploded before everyone. The area where everyone stood, and the surrounding area were all destroyed. Toddy Belster, Morocco Bick, and Daniel were all frightened. The part of the stands they were at was almost completely destroyed. Only the part they were standing on wasn't affected. They weren't the only ones affected. A quarter of the stands in the Colosseum had been obliterated by the impact. At least 100 people were affected. These people, along with their contracted white nightmare, were all turned into ashes. The three of them looked up and saw a giant screen of black and red rising in front of them. It was this giant red and black screen that had protected them from the attack. After the impact, the crimson-black screen slowly descended. Jura van Melsen was floating in the air in front of them. His body exuded a terrifying dark aura, and countless dark tentacles were waving around him. Jura van Melsen looked very angry. He was like an erupting volcano, and his eyes were about to burst into flames. What did you do to Ronald Johnson? Where is he now? Jura van Melsen saw Ronald Johnson's body, but his soul was nowhere to be seen. Ronald Johnson? A crystal ball the size of an egg appeared in Harry's hand. There seemed to be a face on the inside of the crystal ball. Ronald Johnson's soul was sealed inside the crystal ball. Are you talking about this guy? How dare you offend Ronald Jorgensen? You deserve 1,000 deaths. You can't wait to convict us. Harry's lips curled into a smile. At the same time, the crystal ball in her hand was invaded by Harry's magic. Ronald Johnson's soul was in even more pain after being sealed in the crystal ball. Jura Van Melson was even more furious. The dark tentacles around him merged into one and smashed down on everyone's heads. Boom. This time, the dark tentacles did not land. They were blocked by Chen Zhao's dark magma in the air. However, the shockwaves created in midair still made the people in the arena feel dizzy and lightheaded. Herese, on the other hand, seemed to be completely fine. She grabbed the crystal ball. Under the infusion of her magic filled with death aura, the crystal ball started to crack. Ronald Johnson's soul also cracked together with the crystal ball. "You'd better hurry up. Otherwise, your friend's soul will soon be crushed by me." Jura Van Melson was completely enraged. He released 4 fallen souls. These 4 fallen souls were born not long ago, after he had invaded and assimilated them. These 4 souls had originally controlled the power of holy light. After their souls were corrupted, the souls born were 100 times more ferocious than normal evil spirits. However, they were up against the worst duo of all. Herese was a spiritualist who had mastered necromancy. Her most outstanding ability was how to torture souls. In fact, every necromancer seemed to have a special liking for torture. Helis was also a necromancer, and one of the most outstanding necromancers. Herese raised her arm and grabbed the air. A dozen chains shot out from the void and bound the 4 fallen souls. The chains were all burning with blue flames. After binding the 4 fallen souls, they all howled in pain as they were burned by the blue flames. Their past consciousness had been erased. Only their instincts were left, so they still knew pain. But as their souls were burned by the blue flames, their cries became weaker and weaker. Soon the black on their bodies faded too. What replaced it was their pure souls. They were sublimated in the fall. They regained their sanity. Just as the holy could fall, the fallen could also be purified if they agreed. After regaining their consciousness, the 4 holy souls looked at both sides and instantly understood the situation. Of course, they had an unforgettable hatred for Jura Van Melson. After regaining their sanity, they also regained their memories. "Demons, it's time for you to be judged." Jura Van Melson looked at the 4 holy souls expressionlessly. "Have you forgotten who killed you? I wasn't afraid when you were alive, let alone 4 stray dogs who have lost their bodies. Being separated from the body doesn't mean that we have lost our power. The power of holy light comes from our hearts, our faith. As long as our courage is not obliterated, as long as our faith is still firm, our power will not disappear. No matter how beautiful your words are, you can't change the fact that you will disappear completely." You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.